What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto neglected by Team 7 and Team 7 tries to reconnect? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. Bakemono, Yukai, Hitakuri, a monster, a demon, a manslayer, along with other names harsher than the last, that's what they called him. Nothing but a monster, for the simple fact that he existed. One single man had stood his ground as everyone else retreated. They retreated on his orders. It was Yondaime Hokage. He stood tall and proud on top of his summon, Gamabunta, the boss of the Toad Summons. Unflinchingly, he faced the demon, Kyuubi. Uzumaki Naruto, just turned 4, ran through the streets of Konoha. No one bothered to lend a hand to him as he desperately searched for a haven in which he could escape from the horrible villagers. Doors and windows closed as he ran by, for the mothers didn't want their children to see such a bloodied sight, even though the mothers wanted to join it themselves. He ran with tears streaming unchecked down his bloody and dirty face. They hurled rocks and jagged objects his way, not even hesitating before throwing another. No one would help him, for who would ever help a monster? Its 9 tails whipped through the air, destroying whatever they touched. Bloodshot and crazed red eyes stared at its blonde prey. Foam frothed out of its mouth as it howled towards the beautiful night sky, hauntingly serene despite the terror reigning beneath the stars. You deserve to die for the hell you've caused. The sky and the ground trembled under its terrible might, all but one single man. His blue eyes held a steely determination as he stared the demon down. There was no tint of fear in his features, much to the demon's frustration. It howled once more, hoping to see fear from its prey, but it failed. Perhaps they were right, but he doesn't know, for he doesn't remember what he had done to deserve such hatred. They screamed and yelled curses at him, but for the most part, they fell upon deaf ears. So many times he had heard the same things over and over again. He ran for his life, just like every birthday, knowing that there was nowhere safe for him. He had no home to return to and no family to protect him. He was nothing more than an orphan, a demon and a monster. Yondaime Hokage, ignoring the raging beast, performed a set of very complicated hand seals before muttering the name of the ominous jutsu. A bright light blinded the whole sky before, after a few minutes, it faded, leaving the stars still shining overhead as if nothing had happened. Finally, it was over. Crying out, he fell and scraped his knees harshly, before tripping and stumbling to his feet once more. He couldn't see clearly from the tears pooling in cerulean eyes. What did I do? He thought as he stumbled again, asking the villagers the silent questions he had long ago given up on voicing aloud. What did I ever do to you to deserve such treatment? It's not fair. I should at least know what did wrong. No one gave him an answer, they never did. No matter how many times he asked, they just threw glares, names and things his way, never answering, no matter how many times he pleaded with them to stop or tell him what he had done wrong. They never answered and they never stopped, and he knew that they never will. He quickly ran for the cover of the forest up ahead. Sobbing, he dived into the darkest parts of the woods, wishing with all his might that he could get away unseen. He heard 1 or 2 of the villagers dive into the forest after him, hot on his tail. He could hear his ragged breath as he ran as fast as his small legs could carry him. His heart was pounding in his ears. He didn't know what to do or where to go. He was just a scared little kid all alone in the forest, being chased by some really terrible villagers. But he was safe there, safer than he ever was in the village. The village in which everywhere he went, every corner he turned, there would be another hateful villager waiting just for him. In here, there were many places to hide, many places to get away from the villagers, so that he could live to see another day. Suddenly, he gave a startled cry as he tripped and fell down a steep drop, which was hidden from his sight by the thick undergrowth below. He tumbled head over heels, his arms flailing out helplessly. He screamed as his arms snagged against a rock. Dimly, he heard something snap. Everything was a blur to him. Just as suddenly, he stopped, his body colliding with a tree, his head smashing against the bark. Vaguely, he could hear the men overhead. Fortunately, he was hidden from their sight by the very undergrowth he missed before he succumbed to the inky blackness surging from the corners of his vision. His last thoughts were hoping that the thin piece of undergrowth could save his life. Drip, drip, drip. Drops of water were falling down onto his face, waking him up. Naruto opened his eyes only to have another drop of water splash into his sapphire blue eyes. He sat up and rubbed his small hand across them before looking around. It was dim and dark with water pooled across the floor as far as his eyes can see. He was sitting in a sewer-like place from what he could tell. Where am I? How did I get here? I thought I was in the forest. Perhaps someone did find me and threw me in here. I must find a way out. The blonde stood up and looked around, hopelessly lost. However, just a moment later, the pipes in the corridor caught his eye. It was almost pitch black. They were mounted on the wall, fading into the darkness. Perhaps I can find my way out. Taking in a deep, shaky breath, Naruto slowly stood up and put his hand on the pipes, which were about half his size, and bravely followed them along the wall. Soon, an enormous door entered into his vision from the dank darkness surrounding him. The door was made of some very hard, firm wood. It was taller than him by at least 10 times. Following his instincts, which had never guided him wrong before, Naruto opened the door. On the other side of the strange door was a gigantic room. It was even larger than the door. At the very end of the room was a vast cage. Naruto made his slow and cautious way towards it, curious despite himself. Just as he was about 5 meters from said cage, he saw 2 giant red eyes gazing intently at him. He stumbled back and shook and tumbled to the floor. For an age he just sat there, trembling slightly, under the scrutinizing gaze. Intimidated by the sight, he said not a word until, surprisingly, there came a puzzling rumbling sound. He soon realized that it was coming from the shadows of the cage, from the creature to which the piercing eyes belonged. "Hey, are you?" Naruto stuttered as his tiny voice echoed in the now silent cage. It seemed that its focus was entirely on the blonde. Getting annoyed, he gathered up all his courage and glared the creature right in its crimson eyes. "Are you laughing at me?" the small boy demanded, quite angrily. The beast's rumbling grew louder until it could be clearly perceived as laughter. From the shadows, the eyes blinked and moved forwards as the creature moved from the darkness and into the light. Naruto's eyes widened in fright until they were ready to pop out of his head and he fell backwards once more, all courage gone in an instant, to be replaced with stunned awe. Who are you?" Naruto gasped. The beast stood at the bars, taller than anything Naruto could ever imagine. He stood, Naruto imagined, with a smile upon his fox features. The beast chuckled again. "Who am I?" the red-furred monster repeated. "How can you not know who I am?" His 9 tails swung gracefully in the background as he spoke. Naruto would be mesmerized by their hypnotic motion, had his gaze not been drawn to the creature's face. "I, Kit, am the most feared demon of all." In the back of his mind, Naruto realized that he was a very proud demon, so he should probably treat him with utter respect if he valued his life, which he really did. "Gomen Nasai," Naruto started apprehensively, "but I don't know any demons living in Konoha." The demon's laughter returned. "This boy amuses me to no end. I'm not living in Konoha, Kit, not technically at least." Then, where am I? And who are you?" "I, little Kit, am the Kyuubi no Yuko. You may call me Sakimusha." Naruto stepped back with fear written clearly on his face. But Yondaime killed you." Suddenly he realized something and stood there, frozen as a statue. "You're not dead, are you? He didn't kill you. He sealed you." This boy's really smart, especially at his age. I doubt any humans with the childhood that he has would have figured it out so soon. Heck, I don't even think any normal teenage humans would have figured it out. Meanwhile, Naruto realized some other things. He wasted no time in voicing them aloud. And that must be why there's a seal on the cage. It can't just be anywhere, right? I mean, what kind of paper seal can withstand a great beast like you? The Kyuubi's ego swelled at that comment. He could almost see the cogs turning in the young boy's mind, and for a moment he wondered if the kid would grow up to become a genius. All the while, Naruto kept right on thinking. "Anyo, wouldn't there have to be a much stronger seal somewhere? I mean, it's just a slip of paper and, Matt. This little seal, Kit, is just a representation. Think, what do you expect a seal to look like? A seal so powerful that it binds me here. Day in and day out for the past 4 years. The Kyuubi's voice turned to a growling bitter note, however all the while nudging the boy in the right direction. He figured he'd let the kid figure it out on his own. Naruto thought hard. A seal that powerful would have to be written out a lot. Ink. Over something that held the demon? So that the demon could not escape. An image suddenly flashed through his mind. His head shot up to look the beast somewhat fearfully in the eye. On my stomach. There has always been a strange tattoo on my stomach. I noticed that whenever I tried to practice being a ninja, it would appear. Naruto swallowed in apprehension. Is it possible you? The young boy trailed off, and he could have sworn that for a single split second, something akin to pity flashed through the eyes of the great Kitsune. Yes, Kit, was all that he said. Then, I'm right, you're sealed in me? The beast nodded at his question, taking note of the sad, somber expression suddenly spreading over the boy's features as Naruto sat down in shock. That's why everyone hates me, isn't it? But, it doesn't make sense. I'm not you. I'm just your jailer, the only thing between you and them. Why would they hate me? Kyuubi chuckled despite the boy's obvious distress. You're very smart, aren't you, Kit? Yes, you are correct. You are my jailer and this is your mind. The close-minded, puny little humans failed to realize what a 4-year-old could. How rich. They use the excuse that you are me, which you currently are not. After all, I am the strongest Biju there is, and I would have killed them all for actually looking at me in the wrong way. Just to vent their anger and hostility onto you. Demo. Naruto protested, looking up at the Kyuubi with an almost pleading look. Why won't they see that I'm not you? The Biju looked upon the child's face with sympathy in his usually demonic eyes. Maybe, Kit, it's not because they won't see. Maybe it's because they don't want to see. Huh? The 4-year-old gazed up at him, confused and anxious. Think about it, Kit. Humans are naturally selfish and hateful creatures. They lost a lot on the day that I came to Konoha. Those puny humans needed a scapegoat. Someone to vent their anger on. And you were there, they placed all the blame on you. Naruto seemed surprised that the demon lord was offering comfort through his words. Maybe, just maybe, the demon wasn't as bad as everyone thought. Oh. After a pause, the blonde continued, then why did you attack Konoha? Kyuubi looked at him. I was me, yet it wasn't me, on that day. A human, that smelt and looked very much like a snake, came one day and placed a very seal on me. I went berserk and filled with bloodlust. Konoha was just a village in my way. After I got sealed, the snake's seal started to wear off. Little by little, I got my mind back and today I finally regained myself, so I called you. So, can you teach me to become stronger? Naruto looked up with determination burning in his eyes. I need to become stronger to prove the villagers wrong. I'll show them that even someone like me can become the best ninja ever. Then they'll have to say sorry. I don't think I can truly forgive them, but that's another story. The 4-year-old boy looked up with unwavering courage as he stared into the eyes of the Biju Lord. Please, Kyuubi, can you teach me? The demon surveyed the boy for a long time, looking him up and down. Little Uzumaki Naruto, just 4 years old, a very smart 4-year-old, a prodigy trained by a Biju. Yes, Kit, I will teach you. So, can I call you Musha? 7 years later, it was 4 a.m. Who the hell got up at 4 a.m.? Well, a shinobi did, but at 11 years old, Naruto wasn't a shinobi yet. He was in the academy, training to become the world's greatest Hokage, or so he led people to believe. The truth is he just wanted to make a better place for the outcasts of this cruel world. As he jogged around Konoha, he reflected upon that fact. He didn't have to aim to be strong, for his training with Kyuubi had made him a better future shinobi than he liked to let people know. If he showed anyone how capable he really was, he was afraid they would beat him harder than they already did, or in the worst-case scenario, slaughter him. Until he was strong enough and can find other outcasts to protect, he would keep his mask on, no matter what. It wasn't as bad as it had been at first, though. The first thing Sakimusha had taught him was how to avoid the villagers, basically, upping his 6 senses, sight, hearing, touch, smell, taste and sensing, along with chakra control. Things had been better from that day forward, apart from the fact that the Biju was being a real slave driver to the poor boy. That was why Naruto was doing his usual daily run with his usual weights, both chakra weights and gravity weights, strapped to each limb. After that he had to do 100 push-ups and equally as tiring sit-ups, and that was just the daily warm-up. As he ran, Naruto went through his timetable for that day. As he had gotten older, Naruto had grown accustomed to not having anyone to rely on, except for himself and Sakimusha. Well, Not that Sakimusha really helps him besides the intense training. He learnt stealth, so he could steal the equipment and necessities he needed. He started to pull pranks, to practice his ninja abilities and to fool the villagers. Naruto's stealth farther increased as ninja chased him all around Konoha for the pranks pulled. First it was the Genin, then the Chunin, then the Junin and, last but not least, the Anbu. As soon as he got the Anbu involved and after he tested himself against them, he started to slow down enough that the other ninja won't get suspicious. After a while, the Anbu and the Junin stayed out of it. It was usually the Chunin who chased him now. Of course, he lets Iruka, the one Chunin that he liked, capture him on purpose. To the outside world, he was a hyperactive, annoying, loud, boisterous wannabe ninja, a dead last in the academy with the lowest passing scores you could get. However, this wasn't him at all. Uzumaki Naruto was in fact smart, not as talkative, kept himself to himself and was probably better than most, if not all, in his class. The best thing was that no one had a clue. The villagers hated him, but he was no threat to them at all, or so they thought. He kept his mask in place whenever he sensed someone within a 2-mile radius of him. He didn't show anyone just what he could really do. Pausing, only slightly out of breath, Naruto began to ready himself for his chakra control exercises. Sakimusha had already had him master tree walking, water walking, both calm water and rough, and air walking. He'd also pretty much got the hang of walking up waterfalls, seeing as he'd been trying that since he was 5. Finally, the sun started to rise and Naruto arrived back at his apartment in time to get ready for another day at the academy. As he splashed water on his face from the bathroom sink, he realized he'd already failed the Genin exam twice, seeing as Sakimusha had told him to. Next time, he decided, he would pass. Pausing on his way out of the bathroom, he turned towards the mirror. He saw that he had bags under his eyes. He hadn't slept well the night before. He'd had a dream, no, more like a memory of the past. In his dreams, he practically relived the most horrible moments of his life, and this dream had been no different. He remembered years ago when someone, though he could remember no face, beat him in a dark alley within an inch of his life. What deed did I do? For once, he had gotten an answer, the first and the last before his meeting of Kyuubi. Even Sandaime Hokage never told him and nor did Naruto ask him after the first 5 times. You. Then they had disappeared, leaving the boy to fall unconscious in the dirt and grim. From that day on, Uzumaki Naruto was not what he seemed. He turned himself into a joke, a dunce and an idiot of Konoha. He liked to be foolish and play pranks. But at that moment, he stood, silent and unmoving, in front of the mirror and just reminisced. He grinned and I know something that you don't grin. What everyone did not know, was that they had felt trapped to his greatest prank of all, his lie. His puzzle, his game, his mask. Naruto sat at his desk, looking really goofy and excited, while at the same time he was secretly jumping for joy. Today was the day of his 3rd Genin exam. Alright, today's the day Musha said I could pass. I'm going to become Genin for sure. On the outside, Naruto remained foolish, but allowed himself a true smile when no one was looking. He could do this test with one arm behind his back. Well, as soon as Sakimusha taught him how to do one-handed seals and or no seals at all, but that wasn't the point. He would ace the test, no problem. Not so fast, kid. Eh? Naruto blinked in surprise as the Biju's voice sidled into his conscious mind. Musha, stop butting into my thoughts. Kid, it's Mizuki. The ancient fox demon was right. Mizuki and Iruka had just walked into the room. Naruto looked up at them and, for a split second, saw something akin to hatred flash through Mizuki's eyes. Just like always. Naruto just looked as though he hadn't noticed anything out of the ordinary, and instead grinned at the 2 Chunin. Mizuki caught himself just in time, or so he thought, and smiled back at the Jinchuriki. Ohayu, Naruto, Mizuki said as he and Iruka passed on the way to the front of the class. Naruto plastered a huge grin on his face. Hey, Mizuki-sensei, Iruka-sensei, guess what? Today's the day I'm finally going to pass the Genin exams. Mizuki smiled, kindly, and Iruka managed a twitch of the lips as most of the pupils laughed at the blonde's outburst. We'll see, Naruto, we'll see. Iruka said to the energetic boy, moving to stand at the front of the class, closely followed by Mizuki. Kit, watch out for Mizuki. He's acting stranger than usual, today. Hi, Musha. Naruto beamed goofily around the class. Alright, listen up. Iruka addressed the class. For your final exam, you must create 3 perfect bunchins. Wait in here until your name is called from the next room. Ah, crap. With all my chakra, that's my worst technique. Well, at least I know I can create 1 bunchin. 10's as easy as tricking and pranking Ickle Jennings, but 3 clones are harder. Why does my chakra have to be so big? Not that I'm complaining, of course. Oh well, with my training, I'll be sure to get 1 down. Ha, this test is mine. Naruto watched, calm on the inside, as one by one students emerged from behind the door sporting either a new Hite 8 or a downcast expression. One particular time, Uchiha Sasuke walked confidently out of the door, headband in hand, to be met with fawning from his battalion of fangirls and a heated glare from Naruto. Sasuke took pleasure in glaring right back with arrogance. If there was one person Naruto hated, it was the Uchiha. God forbid if he was on the same team as that arrogant bastard. That bastard thinks that he's the best because he's an Uchiha. I mean, come on, there are millions of ninjas that are way better than him. Uzumaki Naruto. Finally, it was his turn. Walking towards the door, Naruto's grin widened as he thought of Iruka and Mizuki's faces, not to mention the rest of the classes. As Naruto took up position in front of the teacher's desk, Iruka spoke. Now, Naruto, all you need is 3 simple clones to pass the test. Don't try anything stupid. Naruto grinned sheepishly, remembering his no jutsu from the previous day, before remembering that his mask was terrible at performing Bunshin no jutsu. His face slipped into a nervous one and he gulped anxiously. Something like hope or glee passed quickly over Mizuki's face. Did he think Naruto wasn't going to be able to do it? Well, not that he blames him. After all, his mask is the dead last. A determined look settled upon Naruto's face, mind fixed on proving Mizuki wrong, as, thanks to Musha's training, he knew he could. Closing his eyes in a silent plea, Bunshin no jutsu was still his worst technique, despite being more able than everyone thought. He knew that 3 clones were relatively easy, though. He started to form the first seal. Kit, fail. Naruto's cerulean eyes flew open. Wait, what? I want to test a theory. Just fail already. Demo. Just do it, Naruto. Naruto obviously had a stunned look on his face, as Iruka was frowning at him. Something wrong, Naruto? Blinking a few times, Naruto looked up at his sensei. Wa? Oh, right, here I go. Taking the plunge and putting his faith in Sakimusha, Naruto gathered up what he knew was a ridiculous amount of chakra for creating a simple bunshin. Iruka and Mizuki both exchanged glances that said all too clearly, he's going to fail. Bunshin no jutsu, Naruto announced. Behold, 3 perfect. Naruto cut himself off as he looked across to a clearing plume of smoke, revealing 3 dead-looking clones lying pathetically on the floor. Clones. Naruto allowed his expression to falter and his hands fall limp at his side. Hey? He scratched the back of his neck sheepishly. Naruto, you fail, exclaimed Iruka. Everyone but Naruto passed, once again. The blonde sat on his favorite swing staring gloomily at the interaction between the happy parents and children. Musha, what's that theory you want to prove? I wanted to become a ninja this time, you know. Be patient, Kit. I promise that your failure would not be a waste. If anyone else had heard Sakimusha say that, they would have thought they were crazy. The Kyuubi was consoling the kid, after all, albeit in a not very noticeable way. Ah, the demon lord carried on. Here he comes now. Naruto, too, felt the presence of Mizuki coming his way. He turned around and greeted him gloomily. Hi, Mizuki-sensei. The sliver head smiled. Naruto, can I talk to you? Okay, Mizuki-sensei. Soon enough, he and Mizuki sat side by side, Naruto still in his role of sad failure. Iruka is a really serious guy. Mizuki started, looking across at Naruto. His parents died when he was young. Naruto pretended to look surprised. TCH, already knew that, seeing as Urusei, Kyuubi, I don't want to know how you killed them. Sakimusha shifted in his cage, snorting quietly, your loss, Kit. Hardly. All the while, Mizuki kept on speaking, oblivious to the fox's intervention. Everything he's accomplished he did by himself, with a lot of hard work and discipline. So, Naruto was confused to where this was going. What's this got to do with me? Mizuki looked sideways at Naruto, smiling slightly at the boy. So, you remind him of himself. Naruto's eyes widened at that, properly surprised. What? Ah, the fox interjected sarcastically. Naruto ignored him while Kyuubi snickered, the sound echoing around his cage and in the back of Naruto's mind. He thinks he's helping you to grow strong. Try to give the guy a break. Can't you understand where he's coming from? Naruto's face remained perfectly downcast as he listened to what Sakimusha was telling him to say. One orphan to another? Naruto looked up, a twinge in his lower gut telling him that he had always been uncomfortable on the subject of him being an orphan. Shaking off the feeling, he proceeded to say what Musha told him to say. The kitsune suspected that he would then be playing right into Mizuki's hands, which is what the demon wanted. Naruto cast his gaze down to the floor and his face fell once more, the perfect act. But, I really wanted to graduate. Mizuki thought Naruto failed to notice the triumphant glance he sent the boy's way. Then, I guess there's no choice but to tell you, he said, feigning offhandedness. Huh? Mizuki turned to smile at Naruto. Naruto could tell that Mizuki's smile hid something ominous behind it, but Mizuki thought that Naruto's wide eyes and curious look were genuine. Sakimusha had to hand it to them. Mizuki and Naruto were great actors. But Naruto was better. Let me tell you a secret that I've been keeping for a long time. Bingo. Later that night, an orange jumpsuit-wearing thief crept his way towards the Hokage Tower, unnoticed by anyone. I bet all of my tales that Mizuki has something to do with the fact that you hardly even needed to use stealth to get in. No duh, Fox. Naruto resisted the urge to roll his eyes, before voicing a question to the kitsune. If he can do this, then why can't he get the scroll himself? For all his brains, he can still be so damn slow, thought Sakimusha. Hello, he plans to put the blame on you, Kit. You know, 2 birds with 1 stone. If he can get away with it, no one would suspect him and he gets to go free. You, on the other hand, would be put in prison or be executed. It's a wonder why, for all the attempts on your life, you didn't already realize that. Ignoring the fact that Sakimusha was obviously mocking him, Naruto went inside the room that Mizuki had told him about. Okay, let's see, the really big scroll marked, the Forbidden Scroll of Seals. Almost as if he had wished it, in the far corner he immediately spotted a really big scroll. This got to be it. Just as he picked it up, he noticed a smaller scroll attached to it at the back, probably so that one wouldn't notice it unless they picked up the big scroll. He was about to detach it, when he noticed something strange. It was addressed to him. That's weird, why would it be addressed to me? A frown flashed across his face. I'll read it later. Naruto thought as he quickly pocketed it. Suddenly, he became aware of the presence of Sandaime Hokage outside the door. He braced himself to attack, he couldn't get caught now. The door creaked open and as soon as the Hokage stood in the doorway, Naruto quickly formed a few seals and called out softly, Oiroke no Jutsu. A cloud of ninja smoke consumed him. When it disappeared, a beautiful, yet very much nude, girl version of himself was revealed. The question on the Hokage's lips disappeared and a wizened hand came up to fruitlessly try and block his nose. It was no good. Sarutobi lost consciousness as the force of his nosebleed made him soar backwards and hit his head on the wall behind him. Quickly, Naruto made his way out towards a secluded field in the forest with a small cabin. When he got there, he opened the scroll and took a good look at it. Due to his photographic memory, he memorized everything in there, and stored them away in mental files for later. After he was done, the blonde went back to the first jutsu, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, and started training. It took a few hours, but now, Naruto has completely mastered the jutsu. He has even found out about the secret of Kage Bunshins. When a Kage Bunshin is dispelled, everything that it knows, the original will know. Basically, Naruto now has a better way of training. He was about to move on to the next jutsu when he sensed Iruka-sensei, unknowingly being followed by Mizuki, coming towards him. The Kyuubi's impatient voice sounded in his mind. Hurry up, Kit, let's get this show on the road. Hi, Musha, just give me a second. Just then, Iruka came into the clearing. Naruto, he exclaimed angrily. Naruto looked at him and grinned foolishly. Hey, Iruka-sensei, I've learned a technique from this scroll, so can I pass now? Nani? Still grinning, the blonde answered. Mizuki-sensei told me that if I can master a jutsu in here, I get to pass the genin exams and become a genin. Iruka looked shocked for a moment, doing a very good imitation of a goldfish with his mouth hanging open. He couldn't believe that Mizuki of all people. Suddenly, he sensed as well as saw a barrage of kunai headed straight towards them. Acting out of instincts, Iruka pushed Naruto away and took the deadly blows head-on. He grunted in pain, "Nice job finding him. Now, I see what's going on." A smug voice overhead was heard, "Now, Naruto, hand over the scroll," and Iruka dragged his head up, just for his eyes to widen in shock. It was Mizuki. "What's going on, Mizuki-sensei? Iruka-sensei?" asked a very confused Naruto as he looked at the two teachers, putting on a slightly scared face. Mizuki laughed coldly. "Hand over the scroll, Naruto." Iruka's shocked and worried eyes darted from Naruto's scared face to Mizuki's triumphant one. "Naruto," Iruka shouted to the blonde, "protect that scroll with your life. That is a dangerous scroll that has forbidden ninjutsu sealed within it. Don't let Mizuki have it, he was just using you to get his hands on it." Mizuki just chuckled, "Naruto, even if you've read it, it'll still be meaningless. I can show you what it means." Iruka blanched. "Urusei, you fool." Mizuki paid no heed, though, and continued to stare down at the frightened Naruto with a look as though he was a cat that just got the canary. "Naruto, do you know what really happened the night 12 years ago? Where the great demon fox, Kyuubi, was killed?" "No, don't," panicked Iruka. "Oh, really, I prefer the name, Sakimusha, but, still these pitiful humans do flatter me so." "Oh, be quiet, Musha." Naruto turned his attention back to Mizuki, while still maintaining his scared not knowing what the hell is going on look. "The truth is that it wasn't killed, instead Yondaime died sealing it. Since then, the people in this village have been bound by a decree." "Wow, I even have a special decree." Musha's prideful voice resounded in Naruto's head, and Naruto had to refrain from actually rolling his eyes at the Kyuubi's antics. "Well, technically it's about me, not you. You self-absorbed kitsune, and you already knew about it, because you told me." "Shut up and listen to the human, Kit." "Ha, that's got to have deflated your gigantic 1,000-year-old ego a bit." All the while, Mizuki carried on speaking, completely oblivious to the conversation in Naruto's head, and carried on believing he had the scared little Jinchuriki under his thumb. I don't remember hearing about any decree." Naruto stuttered out, watching Mizuki chuckle while Iruka struggled to unpin himself from the kunai knives as Naruto walked, obliviously, into Mizuki's greedy and traitorous hands. "Bravo, Kit, your performance deserves an award. You keep playing the puppet? You wouldn't know, Naruto? Part of the decree was that everyone would know, except you." "Except me? What are you talking about? What decree?" Mizuki threw his head back and laughed manically and uncontrollably at Naruto's bewildered expression. "The decree is that nobody is allowed to talk about the fact that you are the demon fox." "What do you mean?" asked Naruto, warily, trying to look confused at the same time. Everyone ignored Iruka as he yelled, "Stop," in vain. "It means that you are the Kyuubi, the demon that killed Iruka's parents and nearly destroyed the whole village. You were sealed up by Yondaime Hokage, the one you admired the most, and you have been lied to by everyone. Didn't you find it strange that everyone hated you, and you didn't know why? Iruka is the same, he actually hates you. Nobody will ever accept you." Flashbacks of Sandaime Hokage talking about Naruto appeared in Iruka's head as he watched the scene unfold with panicked eyes. "That scroll was used to seal you up," Mizuki cried out with a glint of mania in his eye. Unhooking the weapon from his back, Mizuki threw one of the giant shuriken towards a frozen Naruto. Just as Naruto was prepared to use Kawarimi no Jutsu to escape, Iruka leapt towards him, now unpinned from the kunai, and took the shuriken with his back. Drops of blood splattered onto the blonde's face and he stared, shocked, at his favorite teacher. "Why, my..." Iruka's voice hitched as he cried, tears dropping down onto Naruto's stunned face. "My parents, after they died, nobody complimented or acknowledged me. I would always act like an idiot, to get people's attention, since I wasn't able to get attention by doing well in class. It was better than being nothing, so I kept acting like that. It was so painful. Naruto, you must have been in a lot of pain too. I'm sorry, Naruto, if I had done a better job, you wouldn't have to feel like this." Without another word, Naruto put on a scared, shell-shocked face and ran. In the background, he could hear Mizuki laughing and Iruka's shouts. "Kit, we're going to have to stop him. Don't let him get the scroll." "I know, Musha. I just have to lure him away from Iruka-sensei. Then I'll make sure he can't ever try and betray the village again." So the puppet turns on its master. He'll get a shock, Kit, when he realizes that we've been the ones pulling the strings all along. Then again, that pathetic excuse of a human probably wouldn't even realize it to the very end. "That was very well said, Musha." "Why thank you, Kit." Naruto could hear Musha's snickers in the back of his head, and allowed himself a small smile. Suddenly, he felt the presences nearby and he hid behind a big tree trunk about 20 meters away as another, Naruto, pushed Iruka away. Iruka struggled to get up, as Naruto sat against a tree and growled. With a puff of ninja smoke, Iruka became a very furious Mizuki. "How did you know that I'm not Iruka?" Naruto grinned smugly, "Because I'm Iruka." With another puff of ninja smoke, Naruto turned back into Iruka. "I see," chucked Mizuki. "You'd even transform into what killed your parents to protect him. I won't hand the scroll to an idiot like you." "You're the idiot. Naruto and I are the same." "Like hell he is. I can go on just about forever on how you two are different." "Yeah, what he said." Iruka was shocked. "The same. Quote. He continued, "If you use the skills in that scroll, you can do whatever you want. There's no way that the Kyuubi wouldn't try to use its powers." Iruka sighed. "Yeah, you're right." "Whoa, wait, what?" "The Kyuubi would do that, but Naruto is different." "He is. I've acknowledged him as one of my excellent students. He may not be the hardest worker or the best and he's really clumsy, so no one accepts him. He already knows what it's like to feel pain in your heart. He isn't the demon fox. He's a member of Konohagakure no Sato. He's Uzumaki Naruto. Iruka-sensei. Wow, who knew that a guy like him could say something so touching?" Mizuki growled and took his second giant shuriken off his back. "Iruka, I said I would take care of you later, but I'm changing my mind. Hurry up and die." As the shuriken flew forward, Iruka smiled grimly. "So, this is it." Suddenly, an orange blur came out of nowhere and knocked the shuriken off its former path and into the trees. Naruto growled furiously, "Don't touch Iruka-sensei, you traitor. You idiot, why did you come out? Run!" Mizuki yelled, "I can kill a punk like you in one shot." The blonde placed his hands into a very familiar cross-shaped seal. "Try it, Kokuzoku. I'll return the pain 1,000 times. Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu." Suddenly, the whole area was covered with Narutos. Mizuki's eyes widened as he stared at the hundreds of shadow clones. He stumbled onto his behind and stammered, What? How?" Naruto just smirked. "Well, I thought you said you can like me down in one shot. So, what are you waiting for? Come and get us. If you're not coming, then, we'll come to you." A moment later, the clearing echoed with Mizuki's painful screams as fist after fist and foot after foot came raining down upon him, unmercifully. Iruka just sat at the base of the tree, too stunned to do anything but watch the scene unfold. Naruto turned to him, scratching the back of his head sheepishly, with a bloodied Mizuki at his feet. Hey, I guess I went too far. Bravo, Kit. When you get home, you're training. Oh great, thanks, Naruto, Iruka said, smiling at him. Come here, I have a present for you. Slightly perplexed, Naruto obeyed and closed his eyes as Iruka told him to. Soon, he felt something being tied across his forehead. Sensei, can I? Yes, Naruto, open your eyes. Naruto complied, opening his cerulean eyes to come face to face with Iruka, only, something was missing. Iruka was holding his goggles and his forehead was bare. Naruto's eyes widened and a hand shot up to his own forehead. Congratulations, Naruto, you graduate. Oof. Naruto had tackled him to the ground and hugged him, momentarily forgetting about Iruka's wounds. Naruto, to celebrate, how about we go for ramen? Now that you're a full-fledged shinobi, things will only get more difficult. At least, that's the speech I planned to give. But I'll save it for later, at the restaurant. Naruto smiled up at him. Sure, Iruka-sensei. What did I tell you, kid? I told you to trust me. See, you graduated. I guess I did, but you're still training. Don't think you're off the hook. Nani? But Musha. No, buds. Damn Kyuubi, I heard that. You were meant to, Baka Kitsune. A week later, Naruto's sandaled feet clacked against the stone as he wended down the sunny, mildly populated path, heading to the academy for the explanatory meeting. As soon as he walked through the door, Kiba called out, "Failures aren't allowed here, Baka." Sighing at Kiba's outburst, the blonde just pointed to his Hite-8, which was tied across his forehead. "See this, Inuzuka. This is my Hite-8. It means that I passed." Dog breath. Kiba looked stunned for a moment as he comprehended the fact that Naruto had actually managed to pass. He was, after all, the dunce. Kiba stuttered an incoherent sound, before choking it back and glaring at the Jinchuriki as Naruto made his way lithely to his seat. "Troublesome," came an annoyed mutter from an abruptly awakened Shikamaru as Naruto clipped past him, catching Shikamaru's elbow with the zip of his open jacket. Rubbing his abused elbow, Shikamaru grumbled under his breath as his forehead gently smacked against the table, falling once more into slumber. He didn't bother to confront the dead last on his miraculous graduation, it would be too much of a bother. Flopping unceremoniously into his seat, Naruto put his head on his arms and relaxed his limbs, pretending to sleep as he challenged Sakimusha to another round of mental shugi. He even added in fake snores to boot. He was, in fact, quite good at imitating real snores, though he didn't know yet if that was a good thing. Suddenly, with a crash that resounded around the relatively low murmur of the classroom, the door burst open to reveal a pink-haired girl alongside a platinum blonde. As the two boisterous fangirls began fighting and bitching over Uchiha Sasuke, Naruto was very tempted to shove a textbook in each of their mouths. When he couldn't take the raucous din anymore, he woke with a jolt and exclaimed, "For Kami's sake, shut the banshees up." The room fell quiet at his outburst and he rubbed his eyes dramatically, looking around, blurrily, as though to get his bearings, his mind being hazed with sleep. He had, in actual fact, gotten his ass completely kicked by the 1,000-year-old Kyuubi, the 1,000-year-old Kyuubi that knew how to kick his ass at Shugi. Blinking a few times, he noticed that every single eye was on him. The two obnoxious girls were glaring, affronted by his venting irritation. "Oh, never mind." He yawned widely, "My mistake, it was just you girls." He grinned happily, seemingly oblivious to the cracking of knuckles and the glares he was receiving. In the Hokage's office, the third and some assembled Junin were looking into a crystal ball. Sarutobi sighed resignedly and motioned towards its glazed surface. "Naruto is causing trouble, as always." He watched with an acquiescent countenance as the rest of the mini-drama unfolded. Instantly all the fangirls' glares were directed at his innocent-looking face. The pink-haired Sakura yelled, shaking her clenched fist at him, "Take that back." Ino nodded her platinum blonde head in agreement. "Yeah, Kasama, take that back." Naruto huffed and retorted in a clipped tone, "My parents were married, thank you very much." Seeming nonchalant, he then dared to ask the dooming question, "What's so good about that Uchiha Teme anyways? He's just an ice-cold, stuck-up prick of a pretty boy Barbie with a pole stuck so far up his ass that he can never get it out." "Don't call Sasuke-kun Uchiha Teme," came the predicted fangirl screech from every fangirl in the room, "or a prick of a pretty boy Barbie." They angrily stomped their feet childishly, while shaking their clenched fists in the direction of the blonde. Naruto just rolled his eyes in annoyance and exasperation. Honestly, he couldn't stand that Uchiha jerk, Sasuke-kun. Blair, just hearing that prat's name made him pissed off. Kami help him if the Sasuke bastard was on his team. Teme, he glared over in the Uchiha's direction, barely resisting the urge to bare his teeth in a feral manner. Just then, Iruka came into the room and holding a clipboard in his hands. His eye twitched a bit at the murderous intent rolling in tsunami waves off the gathered group of fangirls, which was aimed entirely at the bothersome blonde. Sighing, he saw them flex their fingers as they started to circle round the unsuspecting Uzumaki, who sat, painfully ignorant of the girl's plan, at his desk. Iruka was only a tiny bit surprised to note that Naruto was also radiating a subtle amount of killing intent, glaring at Uchiha Sasuke. Then again, he really shouldn't be even a bit surprised, as practically everyone knew that Naruto hated said Uchiha with a roaring passion. The Uchiha had noticed the Kyuubi's cantainer's glare directed at his person and mentally rolled his eyes at the dunce's antics. With a slender eyebrow, Sasuke gazed intensely right back, with calm nonchalance breezing over his pale features. Naruto's eye began to twitch at the Uchiha's audacity. Sasuke was acting so uncaring towards Naruto's obvious bitter loathing. Invisible competitive sparks of anger began forming between the two of them. Iruka sighed and mentally checked that he still had 1 or 2 aspirins in his desk drawer. With a small huff, he proceeded to demand the children's attention. "Settle down, class. Now, get back to your seats. Sasuke, Naruto, would you kindly stop looking lovingly into each other's eyes while I'm trying to take a class?" "The hell? Iruka-sensei," hollered Naruto irately. At the Umino's last remark, both Sasuke and Naruto had whipped round to the teacher immediately, the former having only a healthy, disapproving scowl on his face, while the latter burst into a yell, with a faint red tinge tinting his tanned and whiskered visage from anger at the false implication. "Ew, Iruka-sensei, don't even imply false remarks like that. The stupid Uchiha Teme doesn't even deserve my full attention, let alone anything like that." "Well, Naruto, it's easy to jump to conclusions if you insist on fixing eyes with Sasuke so often. Stop glaring at him, sit down, quiet down and stay down," came the smart reply. Naruto, HMPHED, and flopped back into his seat, crossing his arms and glowering at Iruka, each and every once in a while shooting a snarling glare at the ice-cold Sasuke, who shot a repulsed scowl right back. Unbeknownst to all of them, in the Hokage's office, Sarutobi and the Junin were chuckling quietly at the two boys. Iruka stepped up to the front of the class, clearing his throat modestly, with a sheaf of paper in his hand. "Class," he began in an important tone, "from this day you are no longer mere students of ninjutsu, but you are fully fledged shinobi." A few whoops and scattered cheers punctured his speech. He was a bit peeved, seeing as he knew the speech off by heart, having said it quite a few times before. Even though he understood their excitement, once having been in their shoes in the past, he still didn't appreciate being interrupted. He cleared his throat once more. "Anyway, as I was saying. Amid the ranks of shinobi, however, you are just novices, the lowest of the low. All your challenges still lie ahead. The next step that you will undertake is the assignment of official duties. You will do this on behalf of your village. You will be divided into 3 men cells and receive a Junin instructor as your mentor." Naruto felt his eyelids dropping. They had all heard most of this information before from one of Iruka's punishment rants. Even then, they had been put to sleep. Sure enough, this time was no different, and Naruto distinctly heard the sharp smack of Shikamaru's head collide with the wooden desk the Nara sat at. Naruto was truly surprised that he had even been awake to start with. "Shikamaru, wake up, this is important." There was a sleepy groan from the Nara and he lifted his head, shooting a tired, disgruntled glare at their sensei. With a sigh, he rested his head on his hand to refrain from using the desk as a pillow once more. "Now, moving on," Iruka began again, eyeing the class with a fierce eye to see who else was on the verge of dreamland. "As I was about to say, these teams have been selected so that each person's individual grades and skills will balance out the cell's overall abilities and every team will be approximately equal." As Iruka began to read out the new genin cells from the sheets of paper, there were a multitude of barely hidden groans from those who had managed to grasp every word their teacher had uttered through their drowsy haze. Naruto felt Sakimusha stir at the back of his mind. Before he could ask the Kyuubi anything, however, Iruka interrupted him. "Team 7 will consist of Uzumaki Naruto." Naruto straightened in his seat as he heard his name issue from the Umino's mouth. "Haruno Sakura, Nani? I'm teamed with that?" A banshee-like shriek came from Sakura's seat as she pointed a quivering finger at Naruto. Naruto rolled his eyes and scoffed at her. "Great, the frickin' forehead banshee. If I happen to get the pair, I'll quit immediately. I swear." "Quiet, Sakura. Team 7. Naruto, Sakura and..." Sakura crossed her fingers in her lap. "No one but Sasuke-kun." Naruto gritted his teeth, eyes fixed on the paper in Iruka's hand. "Anyone but Ino, Uchiha Sasuke. Yata!" yelled the pink-haired girl as she danced in her seat. The girls groaned in disappointment as they shot heated glares of jealousy towards the cheering girl. "Or Sasuke Teme. Fuck it." Naruto swore at his own mask, cutting off Sakura's cheer. "Stupid Y bastard. Just because I'm dumb, I get teamed with him and Pinky." In his mind, Naruto heard the sinister, echoing laughter of the Kyuubi no Kitsune. I'm blaming this on you, Fox, he pouted angrily. Honestly, Kit, you brought the whole mask thing on yourself. But I made sure I had about the same grades as Shikamaru. Why couldn't he be with Pinky and the bastard instead? Well, Kit, it's kind of obvious that Yamanaka, Nara and the bloated Akamichi will be put together, their fathers being the original Ino Shika Cho trio. Oh, Urusei, you bastard. Naruto mentally cut off from the conversation as the Kyuubi began to laugh once more, his deep chuckle echoing in his ears, making it hard for him to hear. Team 8. Aburame Shino, Hyuga Hinata and Inazuka Kiba. A tracker team, Naruto thought automatically. He was vaguely aware of Sasuke's glare on the back of his head as he blocked out Sakura's animated daily Sasuke obsessing ritual. 10. Yamanaka Ino, Nara Shikamaru, Akamichi Choji. Bastard Musha? Naruto slipped back into sulking at his self-bought about misfortunes. Iruka-sensei. Why do I have to be with Naruto of all people? His name slipped off Sakura's tongue with a bitter note, almost as though every syllable threatened to choke her as she spat it out. Naruto sighed and closed his eyes. Lunch break couldn't come fast enough. During lunch, he sat at his swing outside the academy as usual, eating some rice balls. The swing was considered his because no one else would go near it after he first swung on it. As he finished off one of his rice balls, a sharp sting was suddenly felt from an invisible seal at the back of his right hand. Naruto blinked in surprise and his eyes shot towards the back of his hand, where of course there was nothing there. Nothing there but the seal. He knew immediately what it meant. An intruder is at my home. Quite a few years ago, Sakimusha has taught Naruto how to make some useful seals, this one being one of them. This seal alerts him whenever someone enters the place the seal was at, which, in this case, was Naruto's apartment. With this seal, Naruto also could tell who went in there. If it was someone whom he had placed chakra samples of in the seal, which was basically anyone he knew and met the seal on his hand would sting and give him a chakra sample of that person. If it was a stranger, it would just sting. Forming a familiar cross-shaped seal and into another seal, Naruto whispered, "Henge Kage no Bunshin." With a very small puff of ninja smoke, a small canary with blue eyes appeared on his shoulder. He looked at it, you know what to do. With a nod, the canary flew off in the direction of Naruto's apartment. It landed on a tree near the window and spied the intruder. The canary watched, unblinkingly. The intruder had gravity-defying sliver hair and an onyx black eye. His other eye was covered by a slanted hite belonging to the leaves. The lower half of his face was covered by a black mask that only left his one eye seen. Judging by his clothing, he was a Junin. The Kage Bunshin instantly recognized him as the infamous Hitaki Kakashi from the bingo books he owned. His name was in almost every copy. Name: Hitaki Kakashi. Registration ID: 009720. Age: 27. Hidden Village: Konohagakure no Sato. Rank: A rank Junin, former Anbu captain. Kekkei Genkei. Sharingan, only known non-Uchiha member to possess it. Alias: Copy Ninja no Kakashi, Sharingan no Kakashi. Trademark technique: Reikuri, Chidori. Trademark weapon: White Chakra Fang. Others: Sole son of the deceased Hitaki Sakumo, Konoha's White Fang. Can be recognized on occasion with an Icha Paradise book. It differed slightly in every bingo book, but that was about what every one of them stated. What is he doing here? Inside the apartment, Kakashi looked around the living room with menial interest, and spotted an open scroll. Filled with curiosity despite himself, he went over to the table and picked it up. Shit, Shinju Zanshu no Jutsu. The Junin muttered to himself, now, where did he get this? I'm sure that the academy doesn't teach its students these sorts of jutsus. With the scroll still in his hands, the Hitaki gazed around the small, neat apartment. There was something quite out of place. Why was the house so tidy when the kid himself obviously was not? Perhaps there is more to this prankster than meets the eye. The Junin thought, fixing his single eye once more on the scroll in his hands. I wonder, is there anything more behind the pranks? As the Junin continued to mull around the apartment, outside, unknown to the copy ninja, there was a small puff of ninja smoke and the canary turned into Naruto. He walked through the door casually and spotted the Junin for the first time. With a great theatrical start, the blonde yelled and pointed an accusing finger at him. "Hey! What are you doing here, Teme? This is my home." Kakashi smiled lazily at him. "Oh, I was just checking your home, as the Hokage ordered me to do so." Kakashi smiled kindly, his eye upturned, as Bunshin Naruto surveyed him suspiciously. "Then why do you have my jutsu scroll in your hands?" he demanded angrily. Kakashi blinked, realizing for the first time that he, still, indeed had the jutsu scroll clasped lightly in a gloved fist. "Oh, about this." Kakashi shifted a bit, not being used to being caught in the act, so to speak. He managed to avoid the accusing question, however, with a simple, "How did you get it?" Naruto clone blinked, cautious of the fact that the Junin knew full well that academy students didn't learn these types of jutsu, especially ones only used by other higher-ranking shinobi or young prodigies, such as Shinju Zanshu no Jutsu. "That? Well, I found it lying around at a training ground. Since no one was there, I took it." The clone suddenly adopted a very childish and exasperated look. "I've been trying to do it for months now," lied the cage Bunshin. "All I've managed to do is getting stuck underground." Kakashi's one visible eye was narrowed in slight suspicion. "I see." Suddenly, Bunshin Naruto looked at him and adopted a wide, toothy grin. "You're a Junin, right?" said Junin nodded warily. "Right?" His ninja senses were tingling suspiciously at the bouncy boy. "Then can you teach me how to do it? Please." Naruto had even put on the most basic form of his puppy dog eyes that, he was proud to say, quite a few can't resist. He didn't put on his better puppy eyes though, because, truthfully, he had mastered the jutsu in Kakashi's hand years ago. Being an ex-Anbu captain, Kakashi wasn't even fazed by it. He looked at the teen calmly. "Maybe if I have time." The blonde's grin grew even wider as he jumped up and down in excitement. Since Naruto was distracted, the Junin disappeared with a twirl of smoke and leaves without the teen's notice, or so he thought. Once Kakashi was out of the range of a 20-meter radius of him, Cage Naruto calmed down and dispelled itself with a puff of smoke. Back at the academy, all the knowledge of the cage Bunshin was instantly transferred to the original Naruto, who was waiting for the Junin instructor with the other members of Team 7. "So, by the way he was looking around my apartment, he's our Junin instructor." This can be both a blessing and a curse. He would focus mainly on Sasuke Teme as everyone else does and leave the two of us behind. While I can train myself without his knowledge easily because of that fact, the pink banshee can't. She'll be our weak link. What should I do? He looked around the room as he woke up from his sleep. Sasuke was still brooding and Sakura was staring at said Uchiha as she always did, drooling a bit at the mouth. Naruto clicked his tongue quietly, disgruntled by the unfavorable sight of saliva trickling down and messing amongst her dark pink kunoichi clothes. Sakura, glancing over, noticed that he was awake. "Naruto baka. Why the hell did you fall asleep for?" she exclaimed in her complaining voice. "Sakura." Naruto mimicked her whiny voice, making the girl scowl. "If you didn't want me falling asleep, why didn't you just wake me up? Perhaps you were too busy drooling over your Sasuke-kun. And, by the way, you are literally drooling," he finished in a monotone matter-of-factly voice. Sakura gasped and hastily wiped her mouth, blushing furiously as she glanced over at Sasuke. The Uchiha was pointedly ignoring his two new assigned teammates. Probably thinking about his brother. Naruto mused. "I wonder what would happen if he ever find out about the Uchiha clan's cursed blood." A slight frown appeared between blonde furrowed eyebrows. "I think that was the reason Itachi ni killed his clan." Despite the alleged rumor that was mostly true that Itachi had murdered his clan, except for his little brother, the blonde remembered the older Uchiha fondly. Naruto remembered him without scorn or hate, for Itachi had saved Naruto from assassination attempts several times and had been kind to him of his Itachi's own accord. Naruto had once asked the young Anbu captain why he had saved Naruto. Itachi's answer was simply that the villagers were blind fools who couldn't see beyond their own pain. "Sakura?" The girl turned with an angry air towards the blonde dunce. "Nand?" she practically snarled, her banshee growl putting even the Kyuubi to shame. Naruto just looked nonchalantly at her. "The supply closet is down that way," he pointed out the door. I'm sure you'll be able to find a porous enough mop for that drool. Before Sakura could even try to kill Naruto, a familiar chakra essence announced itself to Naruto, via Shunshin no Jutsu. The door opened to reveal the Junin that was at Naruto's apartment about 2 hours ago, one Hitaki Kakashi. With a soft thump, a chalkboard eraser, which Naruto set up about 2.5 hours ago, dropped onto his slivery hair, emitting a small puff of white chalk dust. Kakashi blinked in slight surprise. Naruto grinned dumbly, pointing at him as he laughed. Sakura panicked a little and hastily apologized to their new master. "Gomen, sensei, I told Naruto to not do it, but he wouldn't listen and…" She trailed off sheepishly, embarrassed by Naruto's childish behavior. However, what goes on inside her mind was a completely different story. Inner Sakura was giving Naruto 2 thumbs up, Shanaru. Kakashi looked at them lazily before smiling at the three of them. "My first impression of you is, I hate you." Naruto, Sasuke and Sakura all sweat dropped as Kakashi deadpanned in the absence of a reply. Basking in their silence, the Junin continued, "Meet me on the roof." With a twirl of leaves, he disappeared. Naruto trudged his way up the stairs, Sasuke and Sakura lagging in behind. As they appeared onto the roof, its structure awash with sunlight, they saw their new sensei, Kakashi, waiting for them patiently on the railings with an orange book in his hand. Naruto eyed it warily, noting that it must be the famed Icha Icha volume the bingo books broadcasted about. "Ero-sensei." Kakashi let out a small girl-like giggle as he motioned for them to sit upon the steps in front of him. He didn't glance up from his novel. They waited patiently for a few minutes as the Hitaki let out another perverse chuckle, turning a page in the book. "Oi!" Naruto exploded, seemingly impatient. "Are you going to take your nose out from that book or not?" Sakura aimed a slap upside the excitable boy's head, and Naruto, although he clearly anticipated its coming, decided to let the hit land, and so maintaining his idiotic appearance in front of present company. Kakashi looked up and smiled lazily. "Let's see, why don't you introduce yourselves?" "Introduce ourselves?" Sakura asked, blinking confusingly. "What should we say? Is she stupid or what?" Unbeknownst to Sasuke, Naruto and Kakashi, they had all thought the exact same thing. Kakashi shrugged. "Well, let's see, what you like, hate, your dreams and hobbies, something like that." He looked back at Sakura, who seemed a bit slow on the uptake. He mentally sighed. "I'll start off. I'm Hitaki Kakashi. I have no intentions of telling you my likes and dislikes. As for my dream," he paused for the longest moment, "I have a few hobbies." Sakura's sweat dropped, so all we found out was his name. "Now it's your turn." Kakashi looked at Naruto, blondies first. Naruto grinned foolishly. "My name is Uzumaki Naruto. I like instant ramen. What I like even more is the Ichiraku ramen that Iruka-sensei buys me. What I dislike is waiting 3 minutes for the ramen to cook." Kakashi gazed apathetically at the boy. Does he think of anything but ramen? Maybe he really wasn't as smart as I first thought. Naruto grinned again, adjusting the Hite 8 on his forehead. "My dream is to have everyone in this village to acknowledge me, surpass the pervious Hokage and become one myself." "Well," Kakashi blinked slowly. "He has grown up in an interesting way. My hobbies are pranks, I guess." Kakashi nodded as Naruto finished, turning to the only girl. "Pinky, you next." Sakura glared at him, before smiling sweetly. "I'm Haruno Sakura. The person I like is…" She blushed and looked at Sasuke, who promptly ignored her. "And my hobby is…" She glanced at Sasuke once again. "Well, my dream is to…" She looked at the Uchiha once more and almost squealed. Suddenly, she snapped up straight. "I hate Naruto. And Ino Pig," she added, as an afterthought. Naruto and Kyuubi sneered, typical fangirl. Kakashi sighed. Girls at her age must be more interested in love than ninja training. "Now, the brooding one." Not bothering to be offended, Sasuke answered monotonously. "My name is Uchiha Sasuke. There are many things I hate and there aren't a lot of things that I like." Sakura shifted a bit and looked downcast. Sasuke ignored her. "Also, I have an ambition that I have no intentions to leave as just a dream, the revival of my clan, and to kill a certain man." There was a short silence, where everyone was lost in their own thoughts. Sakura looked at the Avenger with hearts in her eyes. "Sasuke-kun is so cool." Kakashi frowned slightly, "Just as I thought." Like hell, you can kill Itachi ni. I won't let you. Nay, sensei, what are we going to do first? The Hitaki smiled at Naruto's hyperactivity. First, we are going to do something with just the four of us, survival training. Sakura protested, we did enough training in the academy. Sasuke secretly agreed with her, while the blonde just grinned. Thanks to Musha, he knew just what the survival training was truly for. Kakashi continued, I will be your opponent, but this isn't normal training. The others had questioning looks on their face as Kakashi began to chuckle once more. Sensei? Is something funny? Sakura ventured, her pink eyebrows knitting together. He saw your face. Be nice, Kit. Damn it. Out of my head, Musha. He could hear the Kyuubi's echoing chuckle. Kakashi suddenly interrupted his thoughts. No, well, it's just that, when I tell you this, you guys are definitely going to flip. All three pairs of eyes were on him. He smiled once more. This training is a super difficult exam with a failure rate of over 66. Of the 27 graduates, only 9 at maximum will be chosen as genin. The rest will be sent back to academy. There was a shocked silence. Kakashi looked at his team to see their reactions. Sasuke had a surprised look on his face, while Naruto and Sakura's faces were covered in shadows. Sakura injected, spluttering, then what's the point of the genin exams? The Junin looked at her and shrugged indifferently, oh, that's just to select those that have the chance to become genin. Nani? 2 of the 3 kids cried. Sasuke just hinnied. See? You're flipping already. He continued, anyway, tomorrow you will be graded on the training field. Bring all your shinobi tools. He stood up from the railings. Oh, and don't eat breakfast, or else you'll throw up. Then he disappeared in a swirl of leaves and wind. Naruto huffed mentally, why the hell should I listen to you? That's the spirit, Kit. The 3 probational genin sat there for a minute. Inner Sakura was yelling in Sakura's head, this must be a test of love. I can't get sent back to the academy without my precious Sasuke-kun. True love will prevail. Cha. Naruto detected a minor change in Sakura's chakra and noticed the determined look on her face as she glanced over at the already retreating Sasuke. Well, she doesn't seem too anxious about it. This may be interesting. Damn right, Kit, now let's go, you've got training to do. Damn it, Musha, what did I say about listening in on my thoughts? Sorry, Kit, you say something? Damn you, Kitsune Teme. Kyuubi was laughing the rest of the way home. The next day, Sakura, Sasuke and Naruto each frowned as they waited for their sensei. Sakura frowned, for their sensei was late by at least 2 hours, and soon, if she didn't move about, the sun would begin to fade her hair. Naruto frowned, for the annoying pervert of a Junin was late for their training. Sasuke frowned, for he was Sasuke. Finally, after another hour of waiting, where Sakura reprimanded Naruto and Naruto fought the building urge to hang her upside down from a tree, and where Sasuke just brooded in the shade, their sensei finally showed up. Yo, you're late, yelled Sakura and Naruto, loudly. Kakashi just chuckled. Sorry I'm late, but I woke up just an hour ago, and found that I had finished my book. I had to rush out immediately to buy the next volume. Liar! Sakura yelled. Naruto, however, didn't join in, as he suspected that the Junin was probably telling the truth, mostly. Now, Kakashi said cheerily, placing a clock on the stump next to him. I've set this alarm to go off at noon. He slowly drew his hand out of his pocket, a small tinkling sound becoming apparent. 2 bells were clasped in his fingers. Here, I have 2 small bells. He looked around at the slightly confused faces. Your task is to get them off me before the timer sounds. Whoever doesn't manage to get a bell, will be tied to the post while the others eat lunch in front of him. No wonder he told us to not eat. Good thing that I didn't listen to him. Naruto mentally grinned. He, Sasuke and Sakura all just gazed at Kakashi as his voice became serious. Come at me with the intent to kill, or you will never get a bell. All of a sudden, Naruto started to laugh. You couldn't even dodge an eraser. You'll be killed. If I come at him with the intent to kill, I mean to kill to him. Instead of frowning, like Sasuke and Sakura thought he would, Kakashi smiled at Naruto. You know, Naruto, only the weak speak loudly. Naruto pouted and glared. Ero-sensei? Suddenly, without a warning cry, Naruto rushed towards him with a kunai in hand, ready to stab the unsuspecting Junin. In a blink of the eye, said Junin had the kunai pointed at the back of the blonde's neck. Ma. Ma? I didn't say start yet, although, you did come at me with the intent to kill. It seems you've begun to respect me. I think. Sasuke and Sakura looked up at him while Naruto just glared. I'm starting to like you guys. Fast, he's fast? Naruto eyed Kakashi warily over his shoulder. But, not as fast as I thought an ex-Anbu captain would be. Unexpectedly, Kakashi let the genin go and barked out, start. Immediately, the genin all jumped away. Good, Kakashi observed, they all know stealth. Naruto hid in the tree branches nearby, watching Kakashi suspiciously. With a sudden brainwave, courtesy of the Kyuubi, Naruto formed a familiar hand sign. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Kakashi stood alone in the middle of the training ground. Suddenly, he felt a familiar presence standing behind him. Turning, he came face to face with Naruto. Come on sensei. Just you and me, let's go. Kakashi, Sasuke and Sakura, from their respective hiding places, all sweat dropped. Naruto, from within the tree leaves, was embarrassed at his own clone's sheer brashness and foolish acting. Did I really look that stupid all the time? You better believe it, Kit. Musha began to chuckle sinisterly again, the laughter echoing in Naruto's ears. Silently, Naruto groaned, Kami, save me. Sighing, Kakashi slowly reached for his weapons pouch. Let me teach you, your first shinobi skill. Bunshin Naruto narrowed his eyes in suspicion, while the real Naruto just heaved an exasperated sigh. Taijutsu, Kakashi announced. The art of the trained body, blah, blah, blah. Get on with it, Ero-sensei. If I wanted a taijutsu theory lesson, I would have gone to that made a guy freak. Yosh, Kit. Musha's voice rang in his head. In the branches, Naruto froze, a look of pure horror crossing his face. Oh Kami, Musha, guy got you too. No, I don't want to contain a green spandex wearing, nine-tailed Kyuubi. No, no, no. No 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 n. I was joking, Kit. Sakimusha's sweat dropped in his cage as he too shivered from the thought. Naruto immediately stopped screaming in his mind. Oh, hey, never mind. Naruto scratched the back of his neck sheepishly as he watched his clone charge at Kakashi, cutting the Junin off. Naruto Bunshin threw a punch, but Kakashi just sidestepped it, his hand still in his weapons pouch. Glowering up at the Junin, Naruto leapt back. Kakashi tilted his head a bit, raising an eyebrow at the boy. Compared to the others, you're a bit weird? Ha, yeah right, sensei. The only thing weird here is your haircut. Sighing, Kakashi withdrew his hand from his pouch. The clone froze, expecting a weapon. Instead, he saw Icha Icha Paradise? The boy spat out its name and glared at it, disgusted, as if it was his archenemy wearing green spandex and had just sprouted a purple and green version of Kakashi's wild hair. The Hitaki noticed the look and chuckled, turning a page and giggling purposely, just to piss Naruto off more. With a growl, Kage Naruto charged, pulling back a fist to slug Kakashi in the face. Unconcerned, Kakashi blocked the fist as Naruto brought rough his knee to connect with Kakashi's face. Kakashi just ducked, letting out a girlish giggle as he turned another page. Ero Kasama, the clone cried, hefting his fist once more. From the shadows, the real Naruto seethed at the sight of the book, disregarding the fact that the clone was making him look like a complete fool. Suddenly, Naruto spied a bush below him. It was covered in red berries. Slowly, Naruto grinned, like a fox who had just found its prey. Meanwhile, the Bunshin Naruto was not faring well. Just as his fist was about to make contact with his sensei's face, said sensei suddenly wasn't there. Huh? Yo, Naruto, too slow. With a sudden foreboding feeling, the clone turned around to see Kakashi crouching behind him, forming a Tora sign. The clone's eyes widened. Don't let your enemies ever get behind you. Kuso. Sasuke and Sakura both watched from the bushes as Naruto tried to bolt. Dunce. He'll be killed. Suddenly, Kakashi lurched forward, an evil glint in his eye. Too late, Naruto. Hell no. In the blink of an eye, Naruto leapt away from Kakashi's outstretched form. The Hitaki came up short, blinking in surprise. No one, and I mean no one, probes my ass. In the bushes, Sakura blinked. Huh? The kid's fast? The Hitaki's eyes narrowed a bit, before he chuckled. In the trees, Naruto formed a hand sign. The clone glared at Kakashi. The copy nin stood up and brushed himself off, facing Naruto. So, the Hitaki chuckled. You've come across 1,000 years of death before, nay? A young girl laughing as she pulled a 6-year-old Naruto to his feet. Naruto was rubbing his ass, wincing in pain. A disgruntled blush was across his cheeks. The girl just proceeded to laugh even harder. Once or twice, the clone huffed, sniffing in disgruntlement. Without warning, the clone charged at the amused Junin again. Sighing, Kakashi was about to flick open his book again, when a large splash from the river behind him drew his attention, causing him to whip around. Wah! Distracted by the sight of a dozen clones launching out of the water, Kakashi failed to notice the real Naruto until he grabbed him from behind. Naruto grinned. From the place where he had slipped out to join his clones, a mirroring grin spread across the real Naruto's face. Like you said, Sensei, never let your enemies get behind you. No matter how weak I seem. Practice what you preach, Kakashi. As the clones were still flying through the air, the real Naruto quickly used Kawarimi to replace himself with the clone on Kakashi's back without Kakashi noticing the exchange. Leaping off Kakashi unexpectedly, he landed and skidded backwards a bit, before pushing off from the ground and aiming a punch at Kakashi's side. The Hitaki sidestepped easily, Naruto's fist missing his side by inches. The bells jingled as Kakashi's hip twisted away. Naruto smirked as his momentum still carried him forwards. All the other clones suddenly charged towards Kakashi as they landed on the ground. Using a Kawarimi, Kakashi replaced himself with Naruto, noticing, so he thought. Noticing that Kakashi had suddenly disappeared from their midst, all the clones puffed away as Naruto crossed his arms and pouted in the middle of the training ground. Damn it, Sensei, that's no fair. His voice rang through the trees, and all he received in answer was a perverted giggle, echoing about the area. Naruto swore. Suddenly, Naruto spied a bell lying forgotten on the floor. He mentally sighed, knowing it was a ploy, but bounded happily up to it anyway. He was a dunce, after all. Gah! A rope snapped around his ankle and suddenly, he was hanging upside down from a tree. An image of Sakura flashed across his mind. Damn it, why couldn't it be her hanging from a tree, like I wanted? He could hear the Kyuubi's howl of laughter. Irony is a fickle friend, Kit. Naruto growled as Kakashi suddenly appeared in front of him, upside down from Naruto's view, of course. He held the bell in his hand. Musha, it's no friend at all. Naruto glared as the blood rushed to his head and Kakashi smiled good-naturedly. You used your Kage Bunshin jutsu well, Naruto? But not well enough, Kakashi said, making the bell dance in front of his whiskered face. A ninja must learn to read underneath the underneath. Suddenly, Kakashi chuckled. Nice trick, Naruto. He made the bell jerk once more when, suddenly, he was struck by a multitude of weapons, poofing away into a log. TCH, overkill, Sasuke. But Sasuke was already gone, with Sakura in tow. There were a few heartbeats in which Naruto felt for their presences, but found none nearby. Slowly, his face split into a grin and he poofed away, revealing that he, too, had been a clone. The rope hung in a limp noose as the real Naruto stepped out from behind the tree. He stood in the middle of the training ground, alone, and slowly opened his fist, to reveal two small bells that glinted in the sunlight. That's when it struck him, as they sung in front of his face, Kakashi's bells hadn't chimed. Nice trick, Naruto, Kakashi knew. Underneath the underneath. Naruto grin widened even more, his eyes twinkling with the light of laughter. Naruto quietly sat down near what he knew to be the memorial stone, pondering whether to just eat the food that lay in front of him. Minutes passed by, and he suddenly heard Sakura's scream hit the air. Naruto just snorted, wondering what Kakashi had done to the girl. Maybe she was now hanging upside down in a tree. Naruto didn't dare get his hopes up. Behind the trees, relatively nearby, Naruto soon heard the yell of a certain Uchiha, along with the crackle of a fireball. Then, all fell quiet. Amid the silence, the alarm rang indicating the end of the test. Tied to the post was none other than Haruno Sakura. The pink-haired banshee cried out angrily in indignation, "Why am I the one tied to the post? Naruto Baka should be the one here instead of me." "Shanaru." "Well," started Kakashi, "out of the three of you, you did the least." You didn't even bother to try to take a bell. Besides, Naruto, here, got them both. Kakashi said it simply, but Sakura immediately fell quiet and turned to the blonde boy with a stunned look. Sasuke just scoffed, like hell the Dobi can do that. I can still see the bells on your belt. As if on cue, the bells on the Junin's belt disappeared with a puff of smoke, leaving 2 red berries in their place. Said blonde took the 2 real sliver bells out of his pocket and jingled them, the sound reverberating through the air. He rubbed the back of his neck sheepishly. How did you know that I took that bells, Kaka-sensei? The Junin smiled lazily. I noticed it when I completed the Kawarimi. My suspicions were confirmed when I jingled them in front of your face when you got trapped. Naruto pulled a sulky face at the thought of hanging upside down from the tree. Kakashi smiled in amusement at the face the blonde wore. Next time, don't fall for such an easy trap, Naruto. So, how did you come up with that switch you pulled? Naruto scratched the back of his head awkwardly once again. Oh, that? It was just a better version of a prank I did to a shop owner a few years back. Last time, I had to find other keys to replace it with, but this time all I needed was a simple henge on the berries from that bush over there. Naruto pointed in the general direction of said bush as he finished explaining, grinning in satisfaction. The Junin smiled and looked at all of them. Now, Naruto here is the dead last and, yet, he has gotten both bells without my knowledge. You two, Sasuke, Sakura, are the top rookie and top kunoichi, are you not? Now, if Naruto managed to get the bells and you didn't, what does that make you? It makes them complete idiots. But, then, who around me isn't? I agree, Kit. Musha knew he was referring to the fact that no one could see through his dunce act. And, besides, to them, we've made it seem like fluke, because we've done this before. Ahem, we? Fine, just you, Kit. The mock sarcasm was clear in his growling voice. Besides, it's not like they've seen your real power. Not that I want them to. For now. For now. At Kakashi's words, Sasuke clenched his fist so tightly that it drew some blood. He glared angrily at Naruto while Sakura just hung her head in embarrassment. Naruto was taken back by the glare and put his hands out in front of him as a sign defense. Hey. It's not my fault I did it and you can't, Sasuke Teme. I just used one of my old pranks. Before the Uchiha can retort back, Kakashi interrupted them. Ma, we have to get back to the topic here. Now, Naruto, you have both bells in your hands, so who are you going to give the other bell to? Eyes widening a bit at the choice he was allowed to make, the blonde first looked at the bells, then at the other 2 before turning back to Kakashi, both of them. He proceeded to throw the bells at Sasuke and Sakura without hesitation. And, why's that? The Junin asked with amusement laced in his voice. Well, Naruto explained. For one, Sasuke Teme over there doesn't want to work with anyone anyways, so why be a teammate of an unwilling one? Naruto shrugged. 2. Sakura doesn't want to work with anyone but her precious Sasuke-kun. Since both don't want to be my teammate, what's the point of keeping a bell? Naruto stood up and dusted himself down. I can wait for next year. I bet Gigi would allow me to some of the similar missions by myself. Then he proceeded to walk away from the stunned group, only to be stopped by a hand on his shoulder. Kakashi smiled at him approvingly. There's no need to wait for a year, Naruto. Then he turned to the other 2. They looked up at him, eyes wide. You pass, he said simply, gesturing to the Jinchuriki. And it's all because of Naruto. The answer to the test was teamwork. Seeing the looks on their faces, he explained, if he didn't give you the bells and sacrificed himself, I wouldn't have passed you. So, we all pass? Naruto confirmed. Kakashi smiled down at him. Hi. You pass, Team 7. As his words sunk in, Sakura suddenly let out a cheer and Sasuke's visage settled into a smirk. Naruto just grinned cheekily and laughed. Kakashi's eye upturned, showing that he was smiling at them all. Opening his eye, he then held each of them in a serious, yet kind, gaze. As 2 of the 3 now official genin laughed at their success, Kakashi's gaze drifted to the memorial stone in the corner of his eye. Remember, those who break the rules are called trash, Kakashi spoke to the joyful kids. But those who abandon their friends are worse than trash. Isn't that right, Obito? Amidst the joyful cheers of the new genin, the small memorial was silent, holding no answers. But still, Kakashi smiled. There was laughter on the wind. A black shadow leapt through the tall trees of the forest in such a hurry that it was nothing more than a blur to the untrained ninja eye. A few seconds later, 4 flashes of movement darted through the trees, tracing the same trail as the shadow. For a few brief seconds, static echoed over the silent woods. What is the distance from the target? A male voice sounded out, breaking the silence. 5 meters, I'm ready anytime, came the reply in the form of a girl's voice. So am I, added an adolescent male's voice coolly. There was a pause, amplified by the static. After a few seconds, a loud voice came through, I'm here. You're late, scolded the female, her voice making the mic screech. Suddenly, the first man's voice ripped through the earphone, cutting of a snapped reply that was sure to come from the hyperboy. Go, the voice ordered. 3 blurs burst out of their hiding places at the same time and leapt towards the small silhouette. Nya, gotcha. A loud cry hit the air, courtesy of Naruto as he gripped the cat tightly. The cat yowled and spit, thrashing wildly. Itai, she scratched me, stupid cat, I quite agree. It puts a shame to all animals, Biju lords or no. Kakashi's voice sounded from their miniature radios, confirmed the ribbon on the left ear. Are you sure this is the target, Tora? Sasuke grunted, yeah, I'm sure. Good, lost pet, Tora. Search mission, complete. A few minutes later found Team 7 at the mission office, cat in arms, getting ready to report their successful mission. Tora-chan, there came a screech as a really fat woman, who turned out to be the feudal lord's wife, hurried to them and scoped the cat from Naruto, into her arms, proceeding to nearly hug it to death. Oh, my kawaii little Tora-chan. I was so worried. Naruto smirked inwardly as he watched dear little Tora-chan struggle in her mistress' arms. Serves her right for running away. Though, I can't really blame her. I agree, Kit. If I was that cat, I would be out of fire country by now. Luckily, you aren't. Most defiantly. Thankfully for Cat, the Hokage chose this moment to interfere. Now Team 7, what shall your next duty be? Let's see, babysitting an elder's grandson, potato digging, shopping in the neighboring village. Nya, Tora-chan, and search for lost pet, Tora. The feudal lord's wife ran out after her cat in Tora's bid for freedom. No way. Haha, Kit, no way. Naruto exclaimed loudly, we've searched for that cat at least 10 times this week and I don't want to do any more of those chores. Even a simple villager could do those. I want a better mission. Even though they didn't show it, Sasuke and Sakura silently agreed with the blonde. Though, probably the only reason the latter agreed was because she wanted to be the damsel in distress for her Sasuke-kun. Kakashi sighed, I thought it was about time they started wanting higher missions. You idiot, you are just a rookie, scolded Iruka, who was in charge of giving out missions with Sandaime Hokage that week. Everyone starts with the simpler missions and works their way up. Naruto just proceeded to tune him out as he then ventured to explain about the different ranks of missions and which rank of ninjas gets to do them. When the Chunin was finished with his lecture, he found that Naruto was already half asleep, Kakashi was reading Icha Paradise and the other two wasn't even listening. Hey. Kakashi looked up guiltily from his book while Sakura and Sasuke blinked. Naruto yelped and fell sideways with a thud, before sitting up groggily on the floor. There was a second of silence when, suddenly, mischievousness sparked within the blonde's blue eyes. Hey, Gigi, he announced. Why don't let's put on a wager? If I can get first blood from you in one attack, you'll give us a C-rank mission. The others raised an eyebrow at that. It was oblivious in their minds that Naruto would lose the bet. I mean, how can a genin draw the first blood of the Hokage with one technique? Sandaime smiled, feeling confident in himself. Fine, I agree. He was Hokage, what could possibly overcome him? Naruto suddenly grew a smirk that put Sasuke to shame, much to the Uchiha's hidden chagrin. I'm sure Haremu no Jutsu would be able to draw out a pint or two, grinned the blonde as he placed his hands in a familiar seal. The Hokage paled considerably. He knew what Haremu no Jutsu was, alright, and he wasn't willing to embarrass himself like that in front of everyone. No, that's okay, Naruto. The Hokage spoke, surprising everyone in the room. You win. You can have your C-rank mission now. Everyone else in the room blinked, dumbfounded, wondering about the great Haremu no Jutsu that can make Sandaime so afraid. Naruto grinned all the wider. Arigato, Gigi. Sasuke and Sakura straightened at the new of AC rank, while Kakashi giggled at his book. Naruto shot said book a death glare before his attention was turned to the door. "So, who is it? A feudal lord, a princess?" asked Naruto excitedly. "Yeah, right, like hell, he's going to give us someone like that to protect." "Damn right, kid, I wouldn't trust you lot with my life." Musha, your life is kinda trusted with me, remember?" "Yeah, well, it was a figure of speech, kid." Sandame smiled at Naruto's excited outburst. "Well, Tazuna-san is defiantly no lord or princess. You may enter, now, Tazuna-san." Team 7 turned around as the door slid open, revealing an old man in the doorway, swaying slightly with a bottle of sake in hand. Shakily, he took a large gulp of the pungent alcohol, before advancing into the room. "You're meant to protect me?" Tazuna scoffed, taking another swig out of his rapidly draining bottle. "Why, you're just a bunch of brats." Naruto and Sakura glared at him murderously, while Sasuke looked uninterested. Kakashi just chuckled in amusement. Tazuna surveyed them over his glasses with a disapproving look, especially the short little punk with the stupid-looking face. Naruto blinked at that. Who's the short punk with the stupid face? He looked left at Sasuke, then right at Sakura. They aren't short? Everyone in the room sweat dropped at the bemused look on Naruto's face. Kit. The bemused look slowly faded, like rain dripping down a window pane. "Matt, short? Well, I'm going to be taller than you one day. So, there." The blonde stuck out his tongue childishly, but, as for stupid looking, he paused a little before continuing with his fist up in rage. There was a smoldering fire burning in his eyes that would have made Guy cry at his youthful spirit. "I'm going to kill you for that." Aiming his fist back farther, Naruto made to charge at the slightly drunken man. "I'll show you who's stupid looking." Subconsciously, he began leaking out a small amount of killing intent. Kakashi had to grab Naruto by the back of his orange jacket, clamping a hand over his mouth, before he could do anything rash. "Anyo saw. Naruto. You can't go killing the people you're supposed to protect." The Kyuubi was laughing in his cage as Naruto scowled. Tazuna glanced around at them again with disdain. "I am the expert bridge builder, Tazuna. I will require your protection until I can get back to Wave Country and complete my bridge. Once my bridge is completed, your mission is over." Tazuna turned his back to them indifferently, walking out the door. "Let's see if you brats don't get us all killed." Naruto let out a feral little growl, yanking his collar from his sensei's grasp. He didn't want any little punks. Then why didn't he just ask for a higher rank mission? "Kit, keep an eye open, why don't you? Something's not right." "I'll keep 2 eyes open, Musha. Believe it, Kit." The Kyuubi's voice grew deeper, becoming more sinister as he spoke through clenched fangs. "What have I told you about uttering that annoying phrase in my presence?" The ensnared demon Biju let the threat hang in the air. It sounded as though Sakimusha was having trouble keeping his calm-ish voice level. Hey. Naruto silently sweat dropped. "Gomen, Musha." Team 7 stood at the gates to the village. Hurry up, and let's go already." Naruto stood, arms crossed, huffing as Kakashi checked through their stuff one last time. "Impatient brat, aren't you, kid?" Tazuna grunted amusedly. Out of the corner of his mouth, he said to Kakashi, "Am I really going to be safe with this short little dunce?" Naruto's hearing, thanks to the kitsune, picked up on what the bridge builder said and scowled, rounding on him. "Who are you calling a dunce? And short? There are lots of people shorter than me. Konohamaru doesn't count, kid." Naruto snarled like a beast, much to Kakashi's concern, and tried to lunge for Tazuna. But Sasuke tripped him on purpose, succeeding in making the blonde fall flat on his face. "Watch where you're going, dunce." Teme. Naruto, in his rage, was easily distracted by Sasuke. Kakashi, on the other hand, was wondering how on earth Naruto had managed to hear Tazuna from that far away. It shouldn't be possible unless he was an Inuzuka or another animal clan. Which there wasn't, in Konoha at least, and Naruto definitely wasn't an Inuzuka. Tazuna, it seemed, was thinking the same thing. Kid's short but he's got hearing like a bat. In Naruto's mindscape, Musha groaned, "Be careful, kid." Naruto suddenly caught on to what Kyuubi was distressed about. "Oops, Naruto shook off his mistake, turning once more to point accusingly at Tazuna. "One day, I'll show you how's a dunce, old man." I'll become the best Hokage there is, and then you'll have to acknowledge me. Like hell I will, you brat. I doubt you'll ever become Hokage. And, even if you do become Hokage, I still won't acknowledge you. Without another word, Tazuna walked off down the path, the rest of Team 7 in tow. They left Naruto behind, steaming at the ears. His teeth gritted and his eyes started to twitch. Why you? Naruto tripped, once again portraying his clumsy mask. Sakura could be heard laughing all the way out of Fire Country. A while later, Team 7 walked in near silence down the road. It was about 5 more minutes until Sakura's curiosity couldn't stay in any longer. Anyo. Tazuna-san? Hi? He glanced across at her as he walked in pace with their teacher. You are from the Wave Country, nay? Yeah, what about it? Without answering, the pink-haired Kunoichi turned to Kakashi, who was still reading Icha Icha Paradise. Anyo. Kaka-sensei, do they have ninjas in that country too? Naruto, who was tuning almost everything out, snorted inwardly, and they call her the #1 Kunoichi of the year. I'm the dead last and I still know what's happening. You know, Kit, not everyone has been trained to be aware of things like that. Naruto almost blanched. I can't believe you, Kyuubi. You're actually defending that banshee. Technically, I'm not defending her. I'm just stating the fact. Completely unaware of Naruto's inner dialogue with the Kyuubi, Kakashi ruffled the girl's hair and smiled. No, Sakura, Wave Country doesn't have ninja like the hidden villages. But don't worry, there won't be any ninja combat in AC rank mission. The worst, there will be just a few bandits. Naruto's eyes narrowed slightly as he noticed the stiffening of Tazuna's body at the Junin's words. Something's not right here. He's been too twitchy this whole time. Tazuna-san is definitely hiding something from us. At that precise moment, it was then that the blonde sensed 2 chakra essences about 10 meters in front of them, right on the road, but all Naruto saw was a puddle. Ha, I knew it. Why else would 2 ninjas be hiding like that? Well, not that they are really smart. I mean, come on. Why would there be a puddle in the middle of a road that hasn't rained for days? Even those 2 should have noticed. He snuck a glance at the 2 preteens behind him, who was completely oblivious of the ambush waiting ahead, and sighed, never mind. I must have overestimated them. The blonde walked past the suspicious-looking puddle, completely oblivious of the danger that lay within. Just as the last person passed the innocent-looking puddle, there came the loud zip of whizzing chains. Team 7 and Tazuna looked back in horror, unwillingly captivated by the sight of Kakashi wrapped tightly in a thorny chain held by 2 masked ninjas. With a pull and a sickening sound, the Junin was ripped apart, splashing in pieces into a pool of blood. One down, Sakura screamed, Kaka-sensei, Kawurimi no Jutsu. It seems that Kakashi wants us to fight instead. The blonde looked at their opponents. It's the demon brothers of the Hidden Mist. Naruto remembered seeing their profiles in Kirigakure's bingo book. Name: Maizu. Registration ID. Age: 25. Hidden Village: Kirigakure no Sato. Rank: Chunin, B-class missing nin. Kekkei Genkei. N.A. Alias: Demon Brothers, Younger. Trademark technique: N.A. Trademark weapon: poisonous, large, metal claws on his left hand. Others: wears a breath mask, always found with Guzu. Name: Guzu. Registration ID. Age: 25. Hidden Village: Kirigakure no Sato. Rank: Chunin, B-class missing nin. Kekkei Genkei. N.A. Alias: Demon Brothers, Older. Trademark technique: N.A. Trademark weapon: poisonous, large, metal claws on his right hand. Others: wears a breath mask, always found with Maizu. One down. In a blink of an eye, they appeared behind a frozen stiff Naruto. 2 down. Huh? Unseen by all but the 2 demon brothers, Naruto smirked. 3 strikes, and you're out. 3. The demon brothers and the other members of Team 7 blinked in confusion. Suddenly a second Naruto appeared behind the 2 masked nuke nins. Like I said? He smirked triumphantly. 3 strikes. The clone that had been cornered by the brothers ed back his fist, slugging the elder straight in the face. 1. The missing nin reeled backwards, lashing out with his claws at the real Naruto. Misjudging the arc of the weapon, Naruto dodged easily, but the tip of the blades caught his left arm, ripping a gash in it from his forearm to the back of his hand. Naruto hissed and span about as he landed, aiming a kick at the younger brother. The younger dodged simply and cracked the chains like a whip. They caught Naruto around the leg, but Naruto just smiled and swung his leg around, jerking the chain with him. The young brother foolishly held on and was yanked forward. Naruto managed to land his second hit, bringing his free right leg round to crush into the demon brother's face. 2. The momentum from the hit Naruto landed allowed the chain to unwrap itself from Naruto's left leg as the younger brother Maizu was flung sideways, crashing into Guzu's frame. Naruto was just about to leap after them to land a final blow, when they suddenly both dissolved into water. Kuso. The two brothers had regrouped, and were hurtling towards Sakura. Naruto knew he wouldn't be able to get there in time. With their chains lashing out, the two brothers grinned. Sasuke, however, had different ideas. Not at all pleased with Naruto hogging all the fun, Sasuke leapt to intervene, pinning the chains to a tree with his projectile weapons. Guzu and Maizu detached their chains and jumped away from Sasuke. Instead, they headed for Tazuna, clawed hands extended. Tazuna quailed in fear, unable to move from the fright. He reeled back, his legs not working properly, just as the demon brothers lunged forward. In the blink of an eye, Naruto appeared. The brothers' eyes grew wide, but their momentum didn't allow them to jerk away. Naruto appeared inches in front of them with his right leg swinging down from above to land a heel to the back of Guzu's neck, while his body twisted round with the kick, bringing his left fist round to collide forcefully with Maizu's head, and there was nothing the two brothers could do about it. Free. Suddenly, before Naruto could land his third hit and knock the two brothers unconscious, he leapt back hurriedly as, out of nowhere, Kakashi appeared behind Guzu and Maizu, gripping them by the hair and hauling them backwards, crashing their heads into the ground. It knocked them out and stopped their forwards momentum. It all happened in the blink of an eye. Sensei, came Sakura's relieved voice, the fact that her sensei was actually alive dawning on her. Naruto paid her no attention. Kakashi-sensei, what? Naruto stared at his sensei with wide, reproachful eyes. I had them right where I wanted them, believe it. Why did you stop me? Kakashi turned to him, smiling his U-shaped smile. Naruto? He said cheerfully, opening his eye again. You're bleeding. Wah. Oh. Hurriedly, Naruto drew his still bleeding forearm to him, his uninjured hand searching through his pockets for something to stop the bleeding. He gave a slit jump when his hand brushed something unexpected. After a moment, he realized that it was the scroll he had found attached to the forbidden scroll of sealing. Naruto? You okay? At the sound of Sakura's voice, Naruto realized that he had stopped searching his pockets. Oh, yeah, Sakura. He was about to continue searching, deciding to look at the scroll after the mission, when Kakashi took a hold of his injured arm gently. Let me take a look, Naruto, he said lightly to the boy, smiling once more. Those claws were poisonous. TCH, I already knew that. Perhaps you went a little overboard, Kit? Huh? You think I showed them too much? The boy pondered the kitsune's words. Yeah, maybe. I'll be more careful next time. Perhaps being less careful would be better. If you were reckless, they would just believe it was a fluke. Ha, I think they believe that already. Naruto? Huh? Startled, Naruto realized that he had let his mind wander away from the conscious world, retreating into his mindscape to converse with Sakimusha. Kakashi was looking up at his from where he crouched to get a better look at Naruto's arm. Hi, Kaka-sensei? I said that it looks fine. For a split second, a frown appeared on Kakashi's face. The Kyuubi's already healing it. I'll bandage it anyway, so it won't get infected. True to his word, Kakashi bandaged Naruto's forearm. Watching Kakashi curiously, Tazuna asked, how did you know about the two missing nin? On a sunny day like this, where it hasn't rained in days, there's not going to be a puddle, replied the Junin in a matter-of-factly tone of voice. Tazuna blinked at the simple realization, but then frowned. If you knew that, why did you let the brats fight? If I wanted to, the Junin replied confidently, I could have killed these two instantly, but... His eyes darkened. There was something I needed to find out. I needed to know who these two were after. What do you mean? Meaning that, were they after you or one of us? Kakashi took his eyes from Naruto's arm and fixed Tazuna with a piercing gaze, his brow furrowed. Many would have tried to assassinate Naruto. We haven't heard that there are shinobis after you. Our mission was simply to protect you from thieves or gangs. This has now become at least a B-rank mission. This was supposed to be a simple protection until you completed the bridge. Tazuna looked down, ashamed. If it was known that ninjas were after you, this mission would have been set as the more expensive B rank. I'm sure you had a reason, but it causes problems when you lie about the mission. We are now operating outside of duties. On the sidelines, Sasuke and Naruto stood in thought, while Sakura blinked nervously. We aren't ready for this mission," she exclaimed, slightly sweaty with fright. "Let's quit." Kakashi nodded a little. "This might do too much." "No," Naruto cut in determinedly. Everyone turned to look at him as he stared them all down defiantly, a fierce look in his eyes. "We are ninjas and we're supposed to expect the unexpected, aren't we? So, if that's true, I'm going on whether you like it or not. If we don't go on, then how are we ever going to learn a shinobi's life, sensei? I don't see sense in overprotecting us." Kakashi blinked and gazed at him for what seemed the longest moment. "He's got guts, I'll give him that." Naruto looked back at him, standing his ground, unwavering. "Sasuke, Sakura?" Kakashi addressed them, looking over Naruto's head. "Do you feel ready to complete a mission of this status?" Sasuke nodded to his sensei without hesitation. If it helped him get stronger, he would participate, no matter what the cost. The Haruno's eyes, however, darted from Naruto to Sasuke, who were both now looking at her. Sakura? Swallowing her fears, she fixed her sensei with the exact same defiance that burned within Sasuke and Naruto. She nodded. Wherever Sasuke went, she would follow. A while later found Team 7 aboard a small rowing boat. "What thick mist. I can't see ahead," commented Naruto, somewhat annoyed. "I wanted to see if there were any places for enemy ninja to hide." The man who was rowing the boat spoke up, drawing the attention of the passengers. "We should see the bridge soon. Nami no Kuni is at the base of the bridge." Soon enough, a wavering silhouette emerged from the mist. As the bridge came into view, Sakura exclaimed in awe, "Wow! It's huge." "Hey, be quiet," reprimanded the man rowing them. "Why do you think we are hiding in the mist and not using the engine? We'll be in deep trouble if Gato finds us." Soon they reached land and clambered carefully out of the boat. Sasuke and Sakura got off undisturbed. However, when Naruto's foot touched the shore, he immediately felt something was off. "Kit, something's wrong here." The demon's voice sounded in Naruto's head as the boy stepped out of the boat and looked around at the boat docks inconspicuously. "I know," the boy replied, turning with his other teammates to wait as their sensei stepped of the boat, followed by their now sober client. "Someone is watching us, someone powerful, probably Junin level. Do you reckon Kaka-sensei knows? He is a former Anbu captain, isn't he? Of course he noticed, or at least suspects." "Yeah, you're right." Although Naruto was being loud and brash, acting foolish on the outside, he, along with Sakimusha, were on high alert, keeping an eye out for anything suspicious at all. Suddenly, without warning, he threw a kunai into the bushes on the side of the road, startling everyone. "Naruto baka, what was that for? Shanaru, scaring me like that." Without answering her, the blonde made a show of going over to the bushes and revealed a downright terrified white snow hare, frozen in fright. Right above its head, stuck to a tree, was the kunai Naruto just threw. Everyone let out a secret sigh of relief as the target was revealed. The hare was definitely not an enemy. "Baka, you scared it," Sakura yelled, hitting Naruto over the head. Naruto just stumbled forward to the hare, pulling his weapon out of the tree. Naruto hugged it tight. "Gomen, Usagi-chan. They used Kawarimi no Jutsu." Kakashi sighed, "That Naruto. It was just a white snow hare." Kakashi froze, his eyes widening as a thought came to him. "Matt, a white snow hare? Their fur is supposed to be brown in spring. That would mean, Kuso, the enemy is already here. Get down." The Junin's voice rang through the trees urgently, and the genin obeyed, dragging Tazuna down with them. As they hit the floor, an object spanned through the air, ruffling the hair on their heads. With a thud, the gigantic sword held fast in a tree before them. Through strands of blonde hair, Naruto peered up, spying a ninja stood atop the blade. His eyes widened in shock. Masaka, the demon of the hidden mist. Momochi Zabuza. Name: Momochi Zabuza. Registration ID. Age: 25. Hidden village: Kirigakure no Sato. Rank: former Anbu, Junin, a class missing nin. Kekkei Genkei. N.A. Alias: Devil of the Bloody Mist. Former member of the Seven Swordsmen of the Mist. Trademark technique. N.A. Trademark weapon. Head-cleaving sword. Others. He slaughtered all the 100 candidates one day for the genin exams as a child when he was not even in the academy. This incident led to a pivotal change in the genin exams for the future. An expert in silent killing, Zabuza attempted to assassinate the Mizukage, but failed to do so. Naruto got to his feet steadily, shrugging of Sakura who had dived haphazardly on top of him in her haste. He's a Junin, Musha, I can't take him. What do we do? I can also sense someone else watching us, another male, a powerful too. Leave it to Kakashi, Kit, and help him when needed. It's the only thing you can do. In apprehension, the three genin watched as Zabuza conversed with Kakashi, seeming almost polite in his speech, like an old acquaintance greeting someone he met long ago. Well, Kakashi chuckled, if it isn't Momochi Zabuza, the kid who ran off and left the land of the hidden mists. Beside him, Naruto felt Sasuke tense and he looked over to see that the Uchiha's jaw and fists were clenched, with a steely determination and defiance in his onyx eyes. Naruto could have sworn that, for a second, those piercing midnight orbs flickered to him, filled with a venomous daring. Don't you dare, they seemed to say, just try it and see how far you get. Without quite knowing why, shivers ran down Naruto's spine. Those eyes, that look was. Musha's voice resounded urgently in his head. Kit, he's going to try and fight Zabuza. Hold him back if you have to. Stop him. Itachi's look. Don't you dare, Naruto? For a moment, Naruto couldn't tell the difference between the past and the present. Caught in nostalgia, if anyone had asked him so, Naruto could have sworn to them that those eyes belonged to Itachi. With the same look, daring Naruto to go against him, to contradict him, to stop. For a moment, Naruto could have sworn that Sasuke was his brother in disguise. Naruto. Quick as a flash, Naruto's hand whipped out and gripped Sasuke by the arm. The Uchiha turned to him, the same burning look in his eyes. Don't, Naruto said calmly, his grasp tightening. Don't do it, Itachi ni. Sasuke flinched at the harsh grip, fingers biting into his arm. Uncaring for the moment that he was slipping out of his happy-go-lucky routine, Naruto continued dominantly, don't be a fool and try to take him on by yourself. You're being unreasonable, Itachi ni. If you do this, you can't ever come back to Konoha. As he looked at Naruto, Sasuke felt like snarling. How dare Naruto talk like he knew him? Stupid dead last. Yet, out of earshot of anyone else, Naruto kept talking. You're just throwing your life away if you do, Sasuke. Itachi, would you really do that to your own family? Cerulean eyes burned right into Sasuke's soul, fixing him with the same look Itachi had given the Jinchuriki so many times. You can't beat him. You can't do this. Itachi ni. What would Adobe like you know? Sasuke's voice was low, choked with barely suppressed rage, as he addressed the blonde. He tried to jerk his arm away, but Naruto held on stubbornly. Luck is all you have. It must have been luck, to get so near to defeating the demon brothers. At least I know how to use a strategy, unlike you with your spur-of-the-moment rashness. But still, the way he made it look so easy. I won't let a dunce like him upstage me. I can't let someone as weak as him get stronger than me. There was a look in Naruto's eye, and for a moment Sasuke wondered if Naruto could tell what he was thinking, if he was that easy to read. Why the hell do you feel the need to prove yourself, Sasuke? The question was so unforeseen, so abrupt, that, for a moment, Sasuke was taken aback. He blinked in surprise and stopped tensing up against Naruto's strong hold. Naruto let his arm drop and gazed at him with a look that Sasuke couldn't identify. Why, Sasuke? He asked quietly. Sasuke gazed back, his sight slightly unfocused, no doubt their whispered conversation dragging up memories from the past. For my brother. Naruto and Sasuke faced each other and, at that moment, Naruto swore that Sasuke and Itachi were one and the same. Itachi. Why? For my brother. The words were the exact same, but the meanings, so totally different. Sasuke was trying to prove himself, so that he could kill Itachi. But, Itachi just wanted to save him. Naruto blinked a few times, as though dragging himself from a deep stupor. He was no longer confused by the past. In his mind, his memory of Itachi had, only for a moment, overlapped Sasuke, confusing him greatly. Now, the differences were made oh so clear to him. Naruto relaxed and, content, now, with the order of the past and present again, hid within his mask of smiles once more. Sasuke averted his gaze and, without another word, Naruto turned away. Their conversation had gone unnoticed by all, with everyone else too busy facing the mist demon. As Sasuke and Naruto turned back to the unfolding battle, they carefully avoided each other's gaze, instead choosing to ignore all that had just happened. Naruto believed that he had just found the single chink in Sasuke's, otherwise foolproof, emotional armor. Serves him right, then, for choosing the path of an avenger. He'll have to learn to expect a few kinks that he'll have to smooth out. If he didn't know it was going to be tough, avenging the past, he shouldn't have vowed revenge on his brother. Musha, can't you learn to show a bit of empathy? It wouldn't hurt, you know. He's a tough kid, he doesn't need my sympathy. There's a difference between being sympathetic and empathetic, Musha. And I'm not telling you that you have to be, all I'm saying is that it wouldn't hurt you to be a bit kinder. Naruto, I'm a 1,000-year-old demon, sealed inside you. No one's going to know if I'm being kind or not, let alone care if I am. Yeah, you're just worried it'll ruin your reputation. Shut up and eyes on the fight, kid, you never know, you might just learn something new. With a small start, Naruto turned his eyes to where Kakashi had just revealed his soul Sharingan. Naruto watched, intrigued, having only seen Itachi's Sharingan in action a few times in the past. Watch closely, kid, because if you think I'm teaching you anything new this week after all that crap about empathizing, you're so wrong. Nani? Musha. The Kyuubi just laughed. Me, empathizing? Yeah right, I think that talk he had with the Uchiha brat unhinged kid a bit, he's out of his frickin' mind. Unaware to the Kyuubi's musings, Naruto watched warily as pure killing intent emanated from Kakashi as his brown and blood-red eyes searched for Zabuza in the rapidly forming mist. The intent was so thick and suffocating that it froze Sasuke, Sakura and Tazuna to the spot. Naruto couldn't blame them, for even he was somewhat intimidated by the sheer hate rolling off Kakashi in waves. There was a sudden spike in the bloodlust, and Naruto gulped apprehensively, his hands shaking as the feeling of pure despise enveloped him. This was the level of an ex-Anbu captain. Zabuza's laugh echoed from the fog, ringing in their ears. Relax, Kakashi's voice suddenly pierced the uncanny silence that had fallen. The three genin raised their eyes to lock with their senseis as he looked over his shoulder. Slowly, reassuringly, Kakashi smiled. Even if I'm killed, I will never let my comrades die. Naruto mentally rolled his eyes at the last statement. A fat help you or once you're dead. Besides, mistakes of the past can easily be repeated. However, despite his misgivings, Naruto found the strength to repel the killing intent, thanks to Kakashi's words of reassurance. Looking to his left, he saw that Sasuke and Sakura had been able to do the same. Someone, however, obviously didn't believe Kakashi's self-proclamation, as Zabuza's cruel laughter echoed in their ears once more. I wouldn't bet on that. Perhaps Kakashi realized before Naruto, perhaps not, but it didn't matter for they both moved at the same time. Game over, Gaki. Zabuza suddenly materialized in the midst of the genin, sword already swinging round to live up to its name as Naruto's eyes widened and he fell backwards, pulling Tazuna with him. At the same moment, Kakashi used the Shunshin no Jutsu and drove a kunai into Zabuza's side, simultaneously flinging Sasuke and Sakura from harm. Hefting himself into a sitting position on the floor, Naruto narrowed his eyes as he spied not blood, but water dripping from the wound in Zabuza's side where Kakashi still held the kunai. With a gasp, Naruto gave a yell, "Sensei, behind you!" The Mizu Bunshin exploded into water as Kakashi whipped around in time to see Zabuza's sword swing wide and low, slicing his midsection in half. Sakura screamed and Sasuke's eyes widened. For a moment, Kakashi looked surprised, Zabuza triumphant, before the Hitaki suddenly burst into ribbons of water, splashing to the ground. Wah! A cold blade was pressed against the mist demon's neck. Zabuza hissed as Kakashi looked at him in contempt. Game over, Gaki. The Leaf Junin copied the demon's words just like he copied the demon's jutsus. There was a heartbeat of absolute silence, before Zabuza suddenly laughed. Kakashi frowned and pressed harder on the blade as he stood behind the missing nin. You think it's over, Kakashi? Give me some credit, I'm not that easy to fool. Then he too scattered into water droplets and Kakashi's kunai slipped from his grasp. Kuso. On instinct, Kakashi ducked as the great blade once more swung at his midsection. The Hitaki felt his hair raffle in the blade's wake and, before he knew it, he had been kicked high into the air. Nani? He landed with a splash in the nearby lake, coughing slightly as he rose to the surface. The water, it's heavy? Why? Suiru no jutsu. Nani? Water encased him, swirling up from beneath his feet as Zabuza trapped him in the water prison. Gasping and suddenly having the urge to voice every swear word he knew, Kakashi looked out across the water to where his genin stood, shocked and scared. Despair washed over him when he realized that there was no way he could get out. Kami damn him, Kakashi whispered, a snarling hate bubbling up in his chest as he peered up at Zabuza, leering down at Up. Damn it, he swore again. He locked eyes with his team. Just run. It's no use, Kakashi. They're so incapable, they can't even move from fear. Look at them. And Kakashi did look. Sakura's eyes were wide and she was trembling, whereas Sasuke looked determined, yet unsure what to do. He would obviously get jumpy if the uncertainty carried on for long. Then, Kakashi's eyes found Naruto's and saw that he was completely calm. Normally, I would praise him for being calm in such a situation, Demo. Naruto's the one kid who'll disregard anything anyone says and do something reckless. Damn it, Naruto. Kakashi's thoughts were cut off as Zabuza suddenly spoke, grinning at him with an evil look in his eye. I'll finish you later, Kakashi. Now that you're out of the way, I have no hindrance. Mizu Bunshin no Jutsu. There was a swishing sound as a second Zabuza morphed out of the water and advanced on the three genin. You, Gaki, you call yourself a ninja? I bet you're scared of even such a trivial thing as getting injured, let alone dying. I can see you trembling as you stand. Zabuza's sadistic eyes found Naruto's somewhat calm ones and the demon smiled, his eyes lighting up with an evil sheen of hungry delight. Whereas a true ninja is one who has crossed and recrossed the border between the lands of the living and the dead. He thinks I don't know that? He says that like he's died 1,000 times over. I bet he never had over 100 assassination attempts by the age of 4. Don't do anything reckless, Kit. Ha, look who's talking. You would have ripped his head off already. Hi, Demo, Kit. I'm a Biju king. I'm allowed to be reckless. Naruto could almost see the smugness in his voice. Well, oh no Biju, your recklessness is what got you tricked by a certain Habi-sanin and got you sealed within me. Hey, that's a low blow. Hi, Demo, Musha. Guess what? The Kyuubi heaved an exasperated sigh, swearing that he could almost see his vessel's hidden smirk. What, Kit? It's true. Cue serious blow to a certain Biju king's pride right about here. Kit? Something about the Kyuubi's suddenly calm, collected and absolutely normal voice should have warned Naruto to watch his step right then. However, Naruto was completely oblivious, too busy silently laughing at his own joke, which was kind of sad, in the Kyuubi's eyes. Luckily, on the outside, the blonde looked as serious as anything could be, staring defiantly at Zabuza. Little did the mist demon know that Naruto's gaze was actually turned inwards, towards the Kyuubi. Soon, Naruto finally got his laughter under control. Hi, Musha? The Kyuubi smirked and Naruto suddenly felt very exposed. I'd look out, if I were you. Naruto snapped back to reality just in time to find Zabuza's foot connecting soundly with his chest. Ack! He landed with a crash on the ground, vaguely hearing Sakura scream his name through the buzzing filling his ears. A drip of blood slid from the corner of his mouth. Amazingly, he smiled. Hey! You blocked my senses on purpose, you damn fox. Musha just laughed wholeheartedly at that. It's your own fault for provoking someone who has the power to do that to you. Shut it, fox, growled Naruto as he immediately cut off the Kyuubi's voice, turning his attention to Zabuza. Carefully, Naruto clambered to his feet, an aura of carelessness about him. Yo, what's it like living without eyebrows? Naruto gave another cough, blood tumbling in a small stream from the corner of his mouth. Freak? Zabuza's non-existent eyebrows twitched at that comment, and he leaked out a dose more of killing intent. Kakashi was staring at him, eyes wide in pure horror, knowing Naruto has just signed his death contract. From behind the blonde, Sasuke and Sakura were looking anxiously from Zabuza to Naruto and back. They were wondering if he was going to get himself killed. I can't take him on and win, that would be plain stupid. Naruto wiped the blood from his mouth, grinning triumphantly. Zabuza would never guess the millions of plans flashing behind his cerulean eyes. My best bet is to get Kakashi free. I can see a few possible ways of doing it. But there's that stranger, in the woods, watching us. His eyes flickered briefly to the exact spot where a hunter nin stood, hidden to any eyes but his own. Something tells me that he's not on our side, damn it. What to do? Then it hit him. It was the most efficient albeit not the easiest plan at his disposal. At least, it wouldn't compromise on his hidden abilities. It's too early for them to know the real me. Oi, Sasuke, Sakura. Listen up. Sakura and Sasuke's attention immediately turned to him, surprised. Sasuke spoke, what is it, Dobi? Naruto grinned foxily, I have a plan. Within his water-white prison, Kakashi watched the scene unfold with avid eyes, trying to see any way out of the unfolding situation. Baka Naruto doesn't know when to quit. What the hell is wrong with you? The Junin yelled desperately, his voice slightly broken up by the water sphere swirling about him. Get out of here, it's already over. You have to protect the bridge builder. Startled by unexpected cry, Naruto started and turned to his sensei. Huh? He raised an eyebrow and answered back, disbelieving, Sensei, didn't you first say that those who break the rules are scum, but those who abandon their comrades are worse than scum? Naruto's cerulean eyes blazed defiance as he looked Kakashi squarely in the eyes, unflinching as his steely gaze met the Sharingan, daring the Junin to say otherwise. You are our comrade, Kaka-sensei, and we're not leaving you behind. His voice dropped to a growl and he glared at his sensei. Don't you ever say different, sensei. For once, Hitaki Kakashi, the infamous copy ninja, esteemed ex-Enbu captain and son of the White Fang, was completely stunned. He didn't know how he should react. Part of him was proud that they took his words to heart, and yet, another part was distressed knowing that they might as well have just handed their souls to the Shinigami on a silver platter. Baka, Naruto. Stupid idiot. Oi, Oji? Tazuna started, realizing that Naruto was addressing him. Hi? Can we? Naruto trailed off as he gazed up at the old man with his infamous puppy dog eyes. The ones that usually got Kyuubi, Sandaime Hokage, Iruka and all his other precious people to do as he said. Tazuna gave a deep, long sigh at the blonde's hopeful gaze. It's my fault you got into this mess in the first place, lying about the requirements. The least I can do to repay you is to let you save your sensei. He let out a small smile. Don't worry about me, Gaki, just do what you want to do. Naruto turned back to the two Junin with triumph in his blue eyes as he stuck out his tongue in a childish manner. Tazuna Jiji just gave us the permission to stay behind, so there. Kakashi glared at him through the water prison as Zabuza just threw back his head and laughed. Soon, Shrimp, you're going to wish he'd never given you that permission. The mist demon sneered, grinning insanely beneath his mask of bandages. Naruto's face turned to a snarl as he forced a smile. As calmly as could be expected for the insult he had just received, he asked, what did you just call me? In his cage, Sakimusha snickered into his paws, eagerly awaiting the blonde's next move. Past experiences had told him that Naruto seriously hated being called short. The word, shrimp, was practically taboo. Screw the plan. Naruto glared at the smirking Junin as he let out a small animalistic growl. Killer intent leaked from every fiber of his being. Although, it was only a tiny bit compared to what Naruto could really generate, he decided it wouldn't be good for a genin to be seen releasing anything other than what he was releasing now. He satisfied himself with the knowledge that, had he released his normal amount of killing intent, Zabuza would have surely flinched. Without warning, Naruto leapt wildly at the clone, kunai in hand, bearing slightly longer canines thanks to Musha's excitement of the forthcoming battle. Naruto. Sakura's frightened outburst echoed through the air as a mist suddenly rolled in from all sides, swallowing up her teammate and shielding him from her sight. Naruto. Ignoring Sakura's worried cries, Naruto hurtled towards Zabuza's real body, dodging the water clone, clenching the kunai tight in his hand as he ran. With another leap, he saw the mist demon's hand shift to his gigantic sword, ready to swing it outwards and split the blonde's stomach wide open. Tensing, Naruto waited until his momentum hurled him close enough so that he could see the burning desire for battle gleaming in Zabuza's eyes, before he suddenly disappeared. Growling, Zabuza's head whipped from side to side, surprised. Was that Shunshin no Jutsu? His eyes narrowed. It was just a shadow clone. His thick mist apparently was a double-edged sword, as it had hindered his own eyes. The smoke from the dispelled clone had been camouflaged amid the swirling expanse of white. Suddenly, there was a shift in the air. The mist thickened and out of the white vapors flew a giant windmill shuriken. Startled at first, Zabuza's look of surprise turned to a smirk as he deftly caught it in his hand. Laughing at the sheer fruitlessness of the Konoha ninja's situation, he was suddenly cut off by a fist flying out from his left. His laughter was cut short and he leant back to avoid it, his arm still encasing the water prison around Kakashi's helpless frame. Naruto's form faded out of the fog like a ghost, flitting out towards Zabuza. To the Jinchuriki's annoyance, the demon of the hidden mist easily dodged all of his blows, still keeping the swirling water torrent in place. Naruto growled, "He is a Junin, Kit." The halfway consoling comment from the Kyuubi was dutifully ignored as Naruto slipped back into the mist. Weapons clanging to the ground, deflected by Zabuza's sword that was currently being wielded with one hand. If he had both free, I wouldn't stand a chance. Kuso. Naruto froze. Zabuza's killing intent was pushing down on him from all sides, trying to force him out. Subconsciously, Naruto noted that this was probably how people felt when he gave them a dose of his own bloodlust. Right now, Naruto couldn't move. The sheer force of the Junin's intent had him frozen to the spot. Dear Kami, it was terrifying. Move, Kit. At the barking command in the Kyuubi's voice, Naruto suddenly snapped out of his rabbit-caught-in-headlights frame of mind. He shook himself and growled, suddenly feeling very tired. Damn it, what the hell's happening? My chakra's low. Well, with you laying your own Kirigakure no Jutsu on top of Zabuza's to give you cover, it's draining your chakra reserves even further when they're still not back to their original level from that training you did the other day, you baka. I warned you and warned you but you wouldn't. Just, shut it, Musha. My chakra won't last much longer at this rate, Kuso. Naruto growled under his breath. Change of plan? Where's that bastard Sasuke? Zabuza stood in the mist, alone save for the trapped Junin by his side, his water doppelganger having been dispelled since the mist swelled up. That brat, what's he up to now? Suddenly, from the corner of his sharp eyes, he caught the sight of another giant shuriken zooming towards him. Zabuza jumped over the dangerous weapon in the nick of time, just an inch above it. You'll have to do better than that, Gaki, he shouted triumphantly to the air. Momentarily, his heightened ears caught the sounds of a small poof behind him, and he turned his head sharply, to see Naruto falling through the air with a kunai ready in his hand. Sasuke. The Jinchuriki's voice rang out through the doubled mist which, Zabuza discovered too late, had been a cover for the Uchiha. As the kunai left the blonde's hand from behind the mist demon, a fireball suddenly morphed from the mist, heading straight for the Junin missing Nen. Zabuza swore. With an attack from either front, his only option was to dodge completely. He wrenched his arm from the water prison as the kunai grazed his cheek, blood spurting into the fog Naruto's jutsu was still creating. Water crashed in torrents into the lake as Naruto made it back to dry land, unnoticed by anyone else. Coughing the water from his lungs due to his impact with the water after his little stunt, he pulled himself up against a tree, not noticing that he was a fair bit further down the lake's shore from his teammates, not to mention covered from their sight by the curving tree line. With a small cough, Naruto dispelled his hidden mist technique, the fatigue of chakra deprivation finally dragging down his small frame. Damn, no more training for me for a while? I should have listened to that damned fox. Looking out across the water, he spied Kakashi climbing from the lake to stand and face the Kirigakure Junin. Hey. Naruto smiled tiredly at the thought of the ass-kicking Zabuza was sure to receive before swaying dangerously. His head span and vision blurred as he suddenly collapsed, hitting the ground. Suddenly, in the back of his ebbing mind, he was aware of a strange chakra presence beside him. It seemed familiar. Where had he felt it before? That's when he realized, his teammates didn't know where he was. As the mind-numbing darkness claimed his consciousness, the foreign chakra presence slipped from his memory and his last thoughts were ones of annoyance. Crap, I'm not getting left behind. He really should have listened to that damn fox. That's all for now. If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments.